I could easily slap the late emperor to death. Yet here I am, playing blacksmith in this rundown shop. Everyone treats me like a mere mortal, but they have no idea. The rusty iron wedge I use to stoke the coal is actually the ancient heaven-slaying sword. Even the black lump propping up my table leg is a celestial star core capable of triggering a war across 10,000 worlds. That cosmic star core can only unlock its sealed power if I, a transmigrator, take on a disciple. The joke is, I have cultivated over 1,000 levels, yet I still haven't found a single student. Just to blend in and earn a living, I opened this tiny blacksmith shop. But the daily sign-in rewards keep piling up. God-tier forging materials are piled up like mountains. With no other choice, I treat them as scrap metal, casually forging basic tools just to get some peace. But today, the system playing dead in my head finally made a sound. Ding! System detected a perfect candidate nearby who matches the requirements to become your disciple. Please, host, act immediately. Hearing the notification, I dropped my hammer and scanned the street. My eyes locked onto a girl around 16 or 17, wearing a striking red dress with a sword on her back. Her aura was cold as ice. The sect disciples passing by had their eyes glued to her, practically drooling all over the place, but she ignored them completely, walking forward as if they did not exist. I quickly opened my system interface. Oh man, the words reincarnated goddess of the 9 underworlds almost blinded me. Without wasting another second, I lunged forward and blocked her path. Out of my way, Lung Qingqiu snapped, glaring at me with an icy face. Why are you blocking me? Wait, miss. I rubbed my hands and took a step closer. I can see you have an extraordinary gift. I want to take you as my apprentice. What do you think? Her lip twitched, looking at me. She looked at me like I was an absolute idiot. An apprentice? She laughed, her voice sharp as icicles. A mere blacksmith with zero spiritual energy? Before I could even process that, she had already walked away. I yelled after her, change your mind, and you can find me any time. All I got in return was a cold snort. If she were at her peak, I probably would have been frozen solid by now. Watching her walk away, I ruffled my hair in frustration. Failing my very first attempt to recruit a disciple? What a brutal start. Then, I smacked my forehead. Of course! I look like an ordinary blacksmith. Who would believe me with just empty words? I should have shown her the heaven-slaying sword. But by the time I realized that, her red figure had vanished. After pondering for the whole afternoon, I decided to head to the Heavenly Swan Sect's recruitment ceremony to try my luck. Early the next morning, I arrived at the Heavenly Swan Sect Square. Wow, the massive crowd of young people made the place completely packed. Squinting my eyes, I scanned the crowd and quickly spotted that familiar red dress again. Before the exam could begin, I hurried over to her. Hey, what a coincidence. We meet again, I said, catching up to her. Lung Qingqiu looked at me with a flash of surprise, but her face went cold again. Are you still obsessed with making me your apprentice? I grinned. Of course. As long as you take me as your master, I guarantee you will hit the jackpot. Her face instantly turned to ice. I made myself clear. You are simply not worthy. I wanted to pull out some god-tier cultivation manual to blow her mind, but hearing her words, my enthusiasm died instantly. If that is how you feel, then never mind. I turned on my heel and walked away, not wanting to waste another breath. Looking at my back, she let out a cold smirk. As the great goddess of the 9 underworlds, who on earth is qualified to be her master? She only came to this sect for some basic cultivation resources anyway. I rode an ox cart back to my shop, where a 7 or 8-year-old girl ran out to greet me. Her name is Su Yao. I rescued her from the snow 2 years ago. The system claims she is my future top disciple, but the time is not yet right. Seeing my gloomy face, she approached me carefully. Brother Fan, what is wrong? I waved my hand. Nothing, just ran into some annoying things. Hearing this, she immediately ran inside and brought me a hot cup of tea. Her sweet, caring gesture made me smile instantly, and all the frustration in my heart vanished. I was relaxing on my rocking chair outside, soaking up the sun, when a pungent smell of blood made me jump. I opened my eyes to see a young man in black standing before me. Boss, I need to buy a sword, he rasped. His face was pale as paper, and there was blood on his lip. Just as I started to stand up, the system in my head went off again. Detected target matching disciple requirements. My movements froze. I sized up the young man in black. Sensing my gaze, he forced out a weak smile that looked worse than crying. I was overjoyed. I thought I would have to wait another 3 years, but he just walked right in. The system panel popped up, displaying his profile in detail. Keeping a completely straight face, I handed him a rusty iron sword. He took it, paid, and turned to leave. Wait, I called out. I feel like we share a special connection. Why not sit down for a cup of tea? He hesitated for a moment, then gave a bitter smile and nodded. After all, he carried a heavy blood feud and had nowhere else to go. I called inside. The little girl stoking the fire answered in a cheerful voice. Before I knew it, she hopped out, carrying a heavy solid wood tea table with just one hand. The young man's pupils shrank in shock. That table weighed at least 200 pounds. Yet she carried it effortlessly, but I was already used to it. When I first took Su Yao in, I realized her physical strength was terrifying. She could toss hundreds of pounds of iron blocks around like toys. Brother Fan, let's not make the usual strong tea today, she said, tilting her head at our guest. Since we have company, let's serve some of the good stuff. Watching our warm interaction, the young man looked at us with mixed emotions. He picked up his cup and gulped it down, his throat bobbing. But as he drank, tears began to stream down his face, mixing with the tea. Once he calmed down, I handed him a worn-out towel. Do you feel any better now? He wiped his face, his voice thick with emotion. I am sorry for making a scene. I waved it off. We all have our struggles, especially someone like you, bearing a deep blood feud all by yourself. The young man had been looking downcast, but at my words, his entire body stiffened. His cup shattered on the floor. He sprang up, his right hand gripping the hilt of his rusty sword. Who are you? He demanded. His guard raised to the maximum. A complete stranger of a blacksmith knew about his vendetta. He drew his sword and pointed it straight at me. Su Yao instantly jumped in front of me. Don't you dare touch Brother Fan! I remained completely calm and slowly exposed his entire background. Chu Feng, the sole survivor of the imperial capital's Chu clan. With every word I spoke, his sword trembled more violently. If I wanted to harm you, would I have bothered inviting you for tea? I gave a soft chuckle, gently pulling Su Yao behind me. Your talent is actually pretty good. Interested in becoming my disciple? His wide-eyed gaze softened as he lowered his sword. He truly could not sense a single drop of spiritual energy from me. Yet I knew everything about him, even the massacre of his family 3 days ago. You want to teach me? He asked, his throat dry. Veins bulged on his hand holding the sword. On his escape, he had encountered too many traps, but this man seemed different. Have you made up your mind? I looked as calm as a saint, but inside, I was panicking, terrified he would walk away just like Lung Qingqiu did. What can you teach me? He asked tentatively. He wondered if this was a rare stroke of luck. Rumors always spoke of peerless masters living hidden in the mortal world. If I was the real deal, apprenticing wasn't a bad idea. But then, I suddenly changed the subject. Let me see that sword. He frowned but handed it over. I took a quick glance and shrugged. Utter garbage. Before he could reply, with a sharp crack, I pinched that solid steel blade into tiny pieces using only 2 of my fingers. Chu Feng was completely dumbfounded. That was a high-grade steel sword, crushed to dust with my bare hands. Shaking the iron fragments off my fingers, I cut him off before he could worry about dragging me into his mess. Stop overthinking like a child. From this day forward, your enemies are my enemies. Thump! He dropped heavily to his knees and kowtowed 3 times in a row. Your disciple pays respects to master. Haha, get up, my boy. The heavy weight in my chest finally lifted. Ding! Congratulations, host. Disciple recruitment successful. Cultivation limit partially unlocked. Reward: Invincible Vajra body and true eyes unlocked. Activating disciple, Chu Feng's special constitution. Heavenly lightning body. Gifting heaven-defying skill. I am a little mushroom. My jaw dropped in disbelief. System, are you kidding me? What kind of ridiculous name is that? Ding! Host, simply squat down, cover your head, and yell the chant to enter absolute defense. You will be immune to all magic and untargetable by any attack. Holy crap. This cheat is insane. Get me that skill right now. I almost jumped with excitement, but no matter how much I yelled, the system ignored me. I cursed the trash system in my mind. But the next second, my eyes suddenly felt warm, though the feeling vanished instantly. Su Yao shrugged, completely unfazed. But Chu Feng looked horrified, waving his hand in front of my face. Master, are you all right? Ah, I'm fine. I quickly changed the subject. Now that you are my disciple, let your senior sister take you to pick out some welcoming gifts. I winked at Su Yao. Hearing about weapons and techniques, his eyes lit up. But as he looked around my rundown blacksmith shop, his excitement deflated. What could a dump like this possibly have? Still, since he had already accepted me as his master, He had to go along with it. I leaned in close with a mysterious grin. Let me teach you a life-saving ultimate move. If you face someone you cannot defeat, squat down, cover your head, and yell, "I am a little mushroom." Then, do not move. Chu Feng froze on the spot. What kind of ridiculous chant was that? He held back the urge to flip the table, bowed stiffly, and grunted, "Thank you, master, for the technique." I laid back on my rocking chair, watching them head to the backyard. But as they passed the furnace, he stopped dead. He stared at the stone under the coal. It was emitting a faint, starry glow. Even the most prized treasure of his clan did not have a fingernail-sized piece of this mineral. His hands began to shake. This was a legendary cosmic star core. He lunged toward the furnace, staring in disbelief at the red-hot stone. "Oh my God," he whispered, pointing a trembling finger. Once he realized this was the divine metal that could trigger a war between sects, his legs buckled and he fell to his knees. Su Yao tilted her head, watching him like he was a lunatic. Chu Feng kept staring at the meteorite I used to prop up the furnace, his heart nearly stopping. If this thing ever got out, the entire cultivation world would tear itself apart to claim it. Yet here, it was being used as mere coal support. His temples throbbed, but he dared not question me. Gritting his teeth, he followed Su Yao. The moment she pushed open the storage room door, his scream almost blew the roof off. The room was packed with legendary spiritual weapons. They were piled high like mountains of scrap metal. The ones at the top were actually crackling with arcs of lightning, making him fall to his knees in terror. Senior sister, he stuttered, turning his neck stiffly. Are these all scrap iron? Su Yao kicked a pile of blades. Of course. If we do not melt these down, do you expect us to actually go mining? Chu Feng nearly choked on his spit. Treating legendary artifacts as scrap metal was standard procedure here. Trembling, he flipped through the weapons on the floor, his pupils dilating with every single one he touched. His eyes shrank violently. Seeing a spear carved with the Nine Heavens dragon motif, he broke into a cold sweat, his hands shaking like he had Parkinson's. Did Master really just loot the late Emperor's armory? Done choosing yet? Su Yao kicked at the treasures on the floor. Are we going to the scripture room or not? Chu Feng clutched his dragon motif spear like a protective mother hen, only to see Su Yao holding a dozen glowing golden scripture scrolls, heading straight for the furnace. Panicked, he did a sliding kneel to block her. Senior sister, you can't. Su Yao rolled her eyes. Roasted rabbit or stewed goose tonight? With that, she stuffed those heaven-grade techniques right into the roaring fire. The bright flames illuminated Chu Feng's utterly lifeless face. The moment the scripture room door creaked open, his eyes nearly popped out. Legendary techniques were plastered all over the walls, like cheap wallpaper. But the most ridiculous part was a lost ancient formation map being used to seal window cracks. As he plotted to steal a storage ring tonight to pack it all up, my lazy voice suddenly echoed behind him. What? Spoiled for choice? He jumped out of his skin, nervously, saluting me. Master! Well, I don't think you're suited for the spear. Lightning techniques should fit you better, I said, rummaging through the papers like they were trash. Understood, Master. Chu Feng nodded respectfully. Honestly, he wasn't even fond of the spear. Heaven knows how painful it was being forced to practice it by his family. Every swing felt like heavy weightlifting. Aha, found it. I suddenly pulled a greasy, ragged manual from the pile. Sunlight hit it, making faint lightning snakes dance. Blinding. Chu Feng, if this thing were auctioned off, it could probably buy half the cultivation world. I casually tossed it. The moment he caught it, a loud crash echoed, slamming him flat on the ground. It was so heavy, his bones nearly shattered. This wasn't a manual. It was a literal mountain of lightning. Oh, forgot to mention, you have to bind it with blood first, I lazily added. The moment he pricked his finger, the manual turned into a bolt of lightning, shooting into his forehead. He pumped his fist, feeling like he could punch right through the skull of a sea-transforming realm expert. Master, I feel like I'm invincible. Wake up. I smacked the back of his head. Getting cocky after reading one book? You think you're the god of thunder now? Early the next morning, Chu Feng was busy hammering away in the forge. Amid the clanking, he noticed a blinding purple light shining through the crack of my door. Driven by curiosity, he crept closer to peek. Holy crap! The room was covered in top-grade spirit stones, paved on the floor like worthless pebbles. Most ridiculously, a 10,000-year demon core was being used as a mere nightlight. Of all my rooms, only this one was locked. Chu Feng's curiosity burned. Just as he leaned closer, with messy hair, I popped my head out. Did the sun rise in the west? You're up earlier than the chickens. Chu Feng grinned, scratching his head. Master, I swept the yard and was about to call you. How diligent. My eyes lit up like I'd found free labor. Come on, I'll teach you blacksmithing today. Before long, he put down his hammer in shock. Master, something weird happened while I was cultivating last night. He held up 3 fingers. I jumped straight from chi level 1 to level 3. Without even looking up as I chewed on a meat bun. I just activated your special constitution. No big deal. Activated my constitution? Chu Feng nearly spat out his tea. My casual tone made it sound like changing clothes. He couldn't help but ask, Master, what realm are you actually in? Immortal, I mumbled, bun still in my mouth. Chu Feng's cheek twitched as he screamed internally. Yeah, right. What mortal can casually activate a supreme lightning constitution? This lie is way too lazy. I want to go train in the gloomy forest. He clenched his fists, eyes filled with determination. I slowly brushed the dust off my hands. Go on then. Just bring back 2 wild pheasants. I casually tossed him a ragged sack. We're making mushroom stew tonight. My casual attitude made it look like I was sending him to the local market for cabbage, but mental blocks are best cleared by one's own hands. Squinting, I tossed a butcher's cleaver into his sack. Chu Feng's eyes lit up. Master, are you agreeing? I waved him away in disgust. Just hurry back and cook when you're done. I sounded like a father sending his kid to buy soy sauce. The gloomy forest was 100 miles outside town, a casual walk for cultivators. But deep inside, the beasts were no pushovers. Beside an ancient tree, Chu Feng splashed cold mud water onto his face to cool down. Blood dripped onto the grass next to a headless gale wolf he'd just chopped down. The beasts on the outskirts are way too weak. He tossed his hair, narrowing his eyes at the deeper forest. Cultivators were crawling all over this area like a busy market, meaning no good loot was left. He had to go deeper. Tapping his toes, he vanished into the dense woods. A flash of lightning burst through the treetops, startling countless birds. Chu Feng wiped the blood off his cleaver, planning to practice his lightning arts back home. Right after he left, 2 young cultivators arrived, the boy leaping off his flying sword to inspect the dead wolf. His pupils shrank. What brutal lightning power. A one-shot kill. A young woman in red named Lang Qingqiu glanced at the severed neck, visibly annoyed. Let's go. There's nothing to see. Yes, junior sister, the boy replied, rising quickly with a hint of unnoticed jealousy in his eyes. In a flash, they vanished into the trees, heading in the exact direction Chu Feng had gone. Meanwhile, Su Yao was skipping back with groceries when I suddenly narrowed my eyes. 2 guys in bamboo hats were creeping around my forge, holding a dripping, bloody compass. Hey, what are you 2 sneaking around for? I barked, my brow furrowing. They both spun around, and one of them stared at the glowing compass and sneered. This old geezer carries that little bastard Chu Feng's scent. Hearing my disciple's name, my heart skipped a beat. Enemies. Before I could even react, one of them flashed before me, pressing a cold scimitar against my neck. Old man, where is Chu Feng? He hissed. How dare you touch Brother Fan? Su Yao yelled, rolling up her sleeves, her little face red with rage as she prepared to charge. I grabbed her. Don't. Too many eyes in town. I turned to the 2 men in black with an utterly innocent smile. Calm down, brothers. I know exactly where Chu Feng is. I'll take you there. The cloaked men froze, clearly stunned. A powerless mortal facing 2 Foundation establishment experts, and he was this calm? But they figured this backwater town had no real masters anyway. Smart move, old man. Lead the way. Reaching the barren hills outside town, I stopped. So, you're here to seek revenge on Chu Feng? You know a lot, don't you? The scarred swordsman threw off his hat. What? Want to die with your precious disciple? I cracked my wrists, a smirk creeping up my lips. They reacted as if they'd heard the funniest joke, laughing hysterically. With what, you powerless piece of trash? I was secretly thrilled. I was worried about getting the wrong guys. But now I had a perfect excuse to strike. In the blink of an eye, I aimed a slap at the closest guy's skull. A mortal trash dares to fight? He sneered, instantly raising a protective chi barrier to blast me into a bloody mist. Smack! With a wet pop, his head exploded like a ripe tomato, spraying blood all over his partner. His defensive chi was like wet paper. The surviving assassin instantly wet himself, screaming in pure terror. What kind of mortal is this? He is a hidden, ancient monster. He spun on his heel and tried to flee for his life. Trying to run after acting tough? I sneered, throwing an air slap. Boom! A 3-meter deep crater blasted into the earth, leaving the assassin crushed to pulp at the bottom. I shook my hand. muttering to myself. This invincible diamond body power is decent, but not being able to fly around with spells is annoying. I clasped my hands behind my back and strolled home, thinking, that little brat has enemies hunting him already. Time to double his training. Meanwhile, on the other side, Chu Feng had just slaughtered a pack of iron-armored boars. Covered in blood, he collected his loot. Chi, level 5. Feeling the surging lightning energy inside him, he gasped. This technique from Master is insane. He wondered if he should hunt a few more beasts to bring back when he saw a crowd of cultivators rushing in one direction. Brother, what's going on ahead? He grabbed a Chi level 7 passerby. A rare spiritual fruit has appeared. The guy wanted to curse at first, but seeing Chu Feng's blood-soaked, murderous aura, he instantly shrieked like a scared quail. A spiritual fruit? Chu Feng's eyes lit up. Stuffing the boar legs into his sack, he charged into the crowd. Perfect dessert to bring back to Master. Before long, Chu Feng squeezed to the front. On the cliff edge, a fruit glowing with 9 colors was incredibly eye-catching. His eyes sparkled. Strangely, though the cliff was surrounded by cultivators, not a single soul dared to grab it. Chu Feng held back too. Only a fool wouldn't know that treasures like this are always guarded by terrifying beasts. Scanning the crowd, he saw mostly chi-refining weaklings. Barely anyone was at Foundation establishment. Should we make a move? The male cultivator beside Lung Qingqiu asked, rubbing his hands eagerly. Lung Qingqiu narrowed her eyes. What's the rush? Let's see what the guardian beast is first. Calm on the outside, she was secretly thrilled. Although her sect didn't lack treasures, this 9-color primordial fruit was crucial for her, as it could stabilize her newly awakened mystic maiden bloodline. After all, such exquisite spiritual fruits only appeared once in a century. Wait, that girl in red looks familiar, Chu Feng thought, catching a glimpse of Leng Qingqiu. He couldn't help but stare, for a second. Feeling his gaze, Lung Qingqiu turned with a cold glare. Seeing only a low-level rogue cultivator, she frowned. The male disciple beside her flared with anger. What a bumpkin, daring to stare at my sister. Want me to gouge out his eyes? No need, Lung Qingqiu sneered. We can use him as cannon fodder to test the path. Crack! The male cultivator clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white, glaring maliciously at Chu Feng. To impress the goddess he had chased for so long, he had to show off today. Suddenly, a thunderous roar echoed, making everyone tremble. A mountain-sized shadow lunged from the cliff, a blazing golden thunder bear covered in crackling lightning, radiating a late Foundation establishment aura. How the hell are we supposed to fight that? Some people immediately turned tail and ran. Leng Qingqiu just squinted at the giant bear. She was only in the early stage of cultivation, but her eyes held pure contempt. To a reincarnated goddess, this beast was nothing but a brainless brute. With her goddess-level tricks, she could toy this beast to death. Meanwhile, Chu Feng was already eyeing the massive paws. A perfect feast for his master, he thought. But his gaze locked onto the glowing fruit, scheming how to steal everything. Fruit and beast, in one clean sweep. The giant bear roared again, forcing everyone on the cliff back. It had guarded this spiritual fruit for 10 long years and refused to surrender it. Suddenly, an eager young cultivator stepped forward, offering to slay the beast. The young man was bursting with confidence, a fanatic gleam in his eyes. This was his chance to show off to his junior sister. As the top genius of the outer sect, defeating a stronger foe was easy. This dumb bear would be a piece of cake. Lung Qingqiu gave a cold, casual nod. I will leave it to you then, Brother Zhao, she said. Hyped up by her words, the man charged forward, sword raised. A loud crash echoed as cultivator and beast slammed into each other at the cliff edge. But the onlookers quickly realized something was wrong. Brother Zhao was being pushed back, his proud sword strikes failing to even scratch the bear. He panicked, wondering how the top genius of the outer sect could not even pierce the beast's defense. In sheer rage, with bloodshot eyes, he screamed and charged, but a second later, a horrific shriek echoed through the valley. Save me, junior sister, he cried. His precious sword lay shattered under the giant bear's massive paw, yet Lung Qingqiu stood there, completely expressionless. She had no intention of saving him, as if a stray dog was dying. The struggle on the cliff ended instantly. His screams cut short, leaving only the ferocious roars of the thunder bear. Half of his body was crushed to pulp, leaving the onlookers pale with terror. Chu Feng stared at Lung Qingqiu, his brow furrowed. He had once thought she looked cold and elegant, but now her behavior disgusted him. To watch her own senior brother die without lifting a finger was incredibly ruthless. Under the terrified stares of the crowd, Lung Qingchu remained ice-cold. In her eyes, a useless simp's death was meaningless. He was not worthy of a reincarnated goddess. Having tasted blood, the Thunder Bear let out a fierce roar and charged straight toward the terrified crowd. The cultivators scrambled, running faster than rabbits. In the panic, only Lung Qingchu and Chu Feng stood their ground. With a sharp whoosh, both launched forward at the same time. Their target was not the beast, but the prize on the cliff edge, the 9-colored spiritual fruit. Lung Qingchu's eyes narrowed. This rogue kid's thunder movement technique was unbelievably fast. But as a reincarnated goddess, she summoned red lotuses beneath her feet, boosting her speed. Just as they both reached for the fruit, the maddened Thunder Bear realized what was happening. It abandoned the corpse and lunged back. As their fingers almost touched the fruit, a massive, lightning-shrouded paw slammed down like a falling mountain. Violent winds whipped up, sending loose rocks flying over the edge. The bear's bloody jaws loomed. Suddenly, Lung Qingchu pivoted and retreated. Chu Feng gasped as his face went dark. What a dirty trick, using the beast to kill him. Lung Qingchu smirked. Her body was only 17, but her soul was 1,000 years old. A ruthless, ancient soul. Chu Feng's quick moves meant nothing to her. She had planned to let the bear crush him, then grab the fruit while the beast was distracted. The roaring Thunder Bear didn't care, swinging its heavy paw straight at Chu Feng's head. Chu Feng quickly raised his rusty cleaver to block. Seeing this piece of junk, the bear's eyes flashed with contempt. But with a flash of black light, instead of bone snapping, the blade cut through the paw like butter. Dumbfounded, the bear stared down at his severed right paw. In the next second, an agonizing shriek filled the valley. Pain drove the beast mad, but it grew smart. Realizing it could not fight close, it unleashed a massive burst of lightning, turning the energy into deadly spears, raining down on Chu Feng. The youth darted through the storm, his cleaver spinning like a shield. Every spear of lightning shattered on contact. More shockingly, he was absorbing the bear's electrical energy. Terrified, the bear suddenly spun around and tried to swallow the spiritual fruit. If it could not win, it would destroy the prize. Chu Feng became a streak of lightning, rushing forward. "Stop!" Lung Qingchu screamed, breaking her cool persona as she unleashed a flurry of red lotus sword strikes. Their massive attacks crossed paths. Before the giant bear could even scream, it crashed down dead. But neither of them spared the corpse a glance. 2 hands shot forward simultaneously, grasping for the glowing fruit. Lung Qingchu's eyes went cold. She pivoted her sword, thrusting directly at Chu Feng's throat. But the moment their blades clashed, her priceless earth-grade weapon chipped heavily against his rusty cleaver. The reincarnated goddess's jaw dropped. She stared in utter disbelief. How could a rusty kitchen cleaver be a divine weapon? In a flash, her strikes became a blur. She gathered frost energy into her palm, thrusting it toward his chest. But Chu Feng did not flinch. He met her strike head-on with a fist of destructive purple lightning. With a deafening boom, Lung Qingchu was sent flying like a broken kite, crashing hard onto the ground. She stared up, overwhelmed with shock. Even Chu Feng was stunned as he stared at his own fist. Was his master's technique really this overpowered? Impossible! Lung Qingchu shrieked, scrambling up with messy hair. Her fairy-like elegance was gone, replaced by the crazed look of a desperate gambler. Chu Feng rolled his eyes. He bent down and ripped the entire tree out by the roots. Lung Qingchu lost her mind, screaming as she lunged at him. "Put it down! That is mine!" Ignoring her, Chu Feng stuffed it into a sack and walked away. Her furious curses echoed, but he did not slow down. Lung Qingchu staggered up, her face pale as a ghost. Suddenly, an intense freezing aura exploded from her body. Chu Feng spun back, his pupils shrinking as he sensed the danger. This crazy woman was burning her essence blood to force a past life spell. Boom! A wave of absolute zero blasted outward, surging her aura straight to the golden core level. The surrounding forest froze solid, her eyes glowing with a creepy blue light. Going this far? Chu Feng narrowed his eyes. Was she not afraid of the deadly backlash from using past life power? Lung Qingchu wiped the blood from her lip, sneering. What is a small price? She raised her chin, looking down on him. Hand over the fruit and kneel as my slave, she demanded. I might spare you. Chu Feng scoffed. Does this fruit have your name on it? Think a temporary golden core makes you special? He stretched his wrists. Let us see how many strikes you can take. Suddenly, she materialized like a ghost. Ice spikes rained down on his vital points. She was determined to pierce this arrogant rogue to death. Clang! As his cleaver spun, a violent bolt of purple lightning erupted from Chu Feng, blasting outward. Leng Qingchu was sent flying like a rag doll, snapping 3 trees before stopping. Chu Feng stumbled back 10 paces, his hands bleeding from the impact. The destruction thunderbody, Leng Qingshu gasped as she crawled out of the ice, her pride shattered. Her arrogance was replaced by pure shock. Chu Feng shook the blood from his hands, sneering. At least you recognize it. Not all special constitutions are equal. Leng Qingchu suddenly softened her tone, enticing him. Come with me. I will teach you the ultimate lightning techniques. She wiped her bloody mouth, her eyes wild. It is 10,000 times better than struggling alone. Chu Feng laughed. Any trash book my master throws away beats your sect's ultimate treasure. Leng Qingchu scoffed. You frog in a well. My past life was... Just shut up, Chu Feng interrupted, walking away. Say one more word, and I will use this cleaver to bleed you. He had no time for this psycho. Leng Qingchu's chest heaved with rage, her nails digging into her palms until they bled. Think carefully, she spat. My guidance is a blessing of 8 lifetimes. But Chu Feng just kept walking, sack in hand, without looking back. Leng Qingchu finally dropped her aloof facade, stomping her feet in pure desperation. That fruit is extremely important to me, she wailed. None of my business, Chu Feng yelled back, flipping her off. What is your name? Leng Qingchu suddenly calmed, a sinister scheme forming. The fruit was rare, but not worth her life. Chu Feng ignored her. Suddenly, his ears twitched. The ground began to shake violently. A thunderous roar boomed from the forest, sending a shockwave that nearly knocked them over. Leng Qingchu went pale. How could a high-level beast be in the outer region? She stared at the dead thunder bear, and reality hit. They had killed the cub, and now the parent was here. A massive, purple-winged thunder lion, large as a hill, bounded from the trees, its eyes burning with rage. Smelling blood, it roared, unleashing a lightning domain that instantly turned surrounding trees to dust. We are doomed, Chu Feng muttered, cold sweat soaking his back. It felt like they had just poked a major hornet nest. Leng Qingchu had already backed away. Suddenly, she crushed an escape talisman, vanishing in a flash of red light. Left behind with a pale face, Chu Feng cursed at the empty air. You selfish witch, you ditched me. As the massive lightning paw rushed toward him, he closed his eyes in despair. But at the final second, his master's annoying face flashed in his mind. Gritting his teeth, Chu Feng decided to gamble. He threw away his weapon and squatted, covering his head. He screamed at the top of his lungs, I am a little mushroom. Boom. The massive paw grazed his scalp and slammed into the earth beside him, blasting open a massive crater, over 10 meters deep. Peeking through his fingers, Chu Feng swallowed hard. That ridiculous spell actually worked. The thunder lion stared at its own paw in confusion, then refused to believe it, raising its arm for another blast. But the lightning acted as if it hit an insulator, bending around him to strike the empty ground. Master is a legend, Chu Feng cheered, barely holding back his laughter. This technique was better than any armor. The beast went wild, spamming catastrophic moves at him. The earth shook, flattening everything for miles. After half an hour, the exhausted lion collapsed, its tongue hanging out as it stared at Chu Feng. His eyes looked like, are you tired of fighting? Chu Feng carefully held his head-covering pose, shuffling backward. Then I'm sneaking away first. The thunder lion's tail whipped through the air with a screech. I'm a little mushroom. Boom. Another small hill met its doom. That beast had learned its lesson. It simply lay there, staring dead at this weird guy crouching on the ground. So, man and beast locked eyes, dragging it out from midnight all the way to dawn. Chu Feng cursed in his head. Is this damn beast really trying to wait me out forever? Their eyeballs were practically bursting. Chu Feng's legs were completely numb. He screamed internally, is this giant thing out of its mind? The woman in red caused all this. Yet I have to crouch here pretending to be a mushroom. He glared at the thunder lion, gritting his teeth. Are you kidding me? It's not like I killed your cub. Just thinking about that woman who ran faster than a dog made Chu Feng grind his teeth to dust. But the thunder lion ignored him completely. Its eyes like giant searchlights locked onto him. Gritting his teeth, he thought, screw it, I'm fighting you. Before the words even landed, he suddenly leaped up and bolted toward the forest exit like a madman. Boom. A bolt of lightning slammed down right at his heels. Terrified, Chu Feng slammed on the brakes, covered his head, and squatted back down. I'm a little mushroom. Unbelievable. Watching the destructive lightning miss again, Chu Feng's face split into a massive grin. He'd been scared out of his mind last night, just crouching in one spot. Now, as long as I'm not embarrassed, You're the one who's embarrassed. Next, just like playing Super Mario, Chu Feng would run 2 steps, squat down to act like a mushroom. Every single time, the Thunder Lion's attack missed by a mile. Seeing him about to reach the forest edge, the beast roared in sheer frustration. What? Want to come back to the blacksmith shop and forge iron with me? Chu Feng stood on the boundary, proudly slapping his own butt. The Thunder Lion's claws ripped 3 deep trenches into the dirt, hesitating whether to give chase. But suddenly, a deep, heavy sigh echoed from the depths of the forest. Every hair on Chu Feng's back stood straight up. The sound wasn't loud, but it made his heart feel like it was being squeezed by a giant, freezing hand. The Thunder Lion let out a terrified whimper and fled back into the woods with its tail between its legs. Chu Feng's heart skipped a beat. Time to go. Greasing his boots, he dashed down the mountain until he finally saw the chimney of the town blacksmith shop and dared to breathe. Patting his growling stomach, he burst into the yard. That kid Chu Feng is finally back. My eyes lit up when I saw the heavy sack he was lugging. He came up to me, bowing respectfully. Master, your disciple brought back some local delicacies for you. Not bad, not bad. I rubbed my hands together in excitement. As expected of my disciple, look at this bear paw, it's practically bursting with collagen. Chu Feng quickly added, Master, I even uprooted that glowing fruit tree and brought it back for you. I nodded in pure satisfaction. In this summer heat, it'd make a perfect shade tree for the yard. I rolled up my sleeves to prep the walk. Later that night, Chu Feng sat cross-legged in the woodshed, cultivating. His cultivation progress bar surged, skyrocketing from the 5th level of chi condensation straight to early foundation establishment. Shocked, he quickly stopped to stabilize his breathing. The technique in this old book was insane. He had to ask me about it tomorrow. But the moment he lay down, a creepy sword hum echoed right in his ear. Chu Feng bolted upright, cold sweat instantly drenching his back. That hum seemed to pierce his very soul, paralyzing his entire body. To his absolute horror, his physical body began walking toward the storage room, completely out of his control. He desperately tried to scream for help, but his throat felt completely dry, and not a single sound came out. With every hair standing on end, he watched in despair as his feet took step after step. When he realized he was heading straight for the room secured with 3 heavy locks, his pupils shrank to pinpricks. Was some supreme sword cultivator sneaking into the blacksmith shop? But then he remembered they had an ultimate hidden expert me protecting the place. Who would dare seek death here? What truly terrified him was that the spine-chilling sword hum was coming directly from inside that locked room. He fought desperately to regain control of his body. But he couldn't budge an inch, feeling like 10,000 arrows were piercing his heart. Meanwhile, I was sleeping soundly, sprawled out on my bed with a bit of drool hanging from my mouth, probably dreaming of endless snacks. In her room, Su Yao was shaking like a leaf until she couldn't take it anymore and burst into my room. She grabbed my arm and shook me like crazy. Brother Fan, wake up, that ragged wooden box is making that creepy noise again. I rubbed my eyes, completely groggy. What's the racket in the middle of the night? Su Yao's face was white. It's the sword box in your locked room. Just listen. That made me bolt upright. I listened closely and, sure enough, heard a sharp, annoying buzz. My face instantly went dark. Damn it! Did that wooden box forget the lesson from when I used it to chop firewood? How dare it ruin my beauty sleep? I kicked my door open in a fury and collided head-on with a sleepwalking-like Chu Feng. Seeing me, he grabbed onto me like a lifeline, scrambling and crawling to my feet. Master, there's something in that room. It took over my body. Out of line, is it? I muttered. I immediately rolled up my sleeves and pulled out the keys, while Su Yao and Chu Feng hid behind me, trembling in fear. I kicked the door open. A shabby, bronze-colored sword box stood all alone in the center of the room. The creepy hum instantly stopped. Scream, why'd you stop? Keep going. I raised my leg and gave the sword box a savage beating. The loud clanging shook the entire room. Chu Feng stared at me, completely dumbfounded. He probably never expected his mysterious, profound master to act like a street thug. The weirdest part? The sword box actually wobbled as if it felt wronged. No matter how hard I kicked it, it didn't dare make another peep. Try pulling this spooky crap again at night and see if I don't throw you into the outhouse. Grumbling, I locked the door back up, yawned, and went back to sleep. Chu Feng just stood there, questioning his life, while Su Yao, completely used to this, let out a tiny yawn and trotted back to her room. That left the ancient demon sword inside the box, which possessed a living spirit, whimpering in the corner. All it wanted was a taste of that prime lightning constitution. At the break of dawn, Chu Feng tiptoed out to start the forge. Passing that locked room, he practically plastered himself against the opposite wall. The trauma from last night was just too real. Even though he had a million questions, he knew I would tell him when the time was right. Meanwhile, wearing a messy bedhead, I yawned and strolled into the yard, with Su Yao trailing behind me with heavy dark circles. I figured she must have been terrified last night, considering how spaced out she still was. "Good morning, master." Chu Feng had already set the table, and the bear paw soup was steaming. The rich aroma was incredible. Having a disciple to serve me was pure bliss. I took a satisfying sip of the soup, then remembered something. "Oh right, yesterday, 2 guys in black with scimitars tried to jump you. I casually swatted them into mush." Chu Feng's chopsticks clattered to the table, his fists clenching tightly. His knuckles popped, but the moment he saw my concerned gaze, he forced down his rage. His voice sounded strained. "This disciple has caused trouble for you, master." "Cut the formal nonsense," I said, dropping a piece of bear meat into his bowl. "If a master doesn't protect his disciple, who will?" I noticed the kid's throat bob as he buried his face in his bowl, shoveling rice down to hide his red eyes. It took him a while to ask quietly, "Master, since my cultivation is rising so fast, will my foundation be unstable? Could I suffer chi deviation?" "You have the Nirvana lightning constitution. Lightning tempers your body, so cultivate however you want." I waved my hand, my mouth covered in oil. "But just cultivating is useless. One of these days I'll take you to wipe out their nest for practice." I pulled out the 9-colored yuan-restoring fruit and tossed it over like a regular apple. He tried to refuse, but I waved his hand away in annoyance. "Save it for dessert. This thing has less kick to me than cheap liquor." After breakfast, Su Yao actually got brave enough to skip right in front of the locked room, making Chu Feng's eyelids twitch. Meanwhile, I lay back comfortably at the entrance, soaking up the sun. Watching my disciple work his tail off at the forge was great. I was happily planning what side dishes to make tonight when a system prompt rang out. "Super premium disciple detected. Please claim immediately." I popped straight up in shock. Just then, when there wasn't a single soul on our street, a massive boom shook the air, sending dust flying everywhere. I stared in disbelief at a huge crater blasted right in the blacksmith shop yard. At the bottom lay a girl covered in blood. I couldn't help but wonder to myself, is this system's delivery always this hardcore? A literal airdrop. Coughing, the girl struggled to lift her head. Seeing the 3 of us standing around the crater, she quickly pulled out a broken sword. Though she could barely stand, her glare was as fierce as a cornered cub. "Who? What do you want?" Seeing she was on the verge of collapsing, Chu Feng asked, "Master, should I go get her some water?" I quickly winked at Su Yao. "Yao Yao, go help her inside." Nodding in understanding, Su Yao jumped into the pit and lifted her out with one hand. The girl's eyes widened. She began sizing me up with a strange look, probably trying to figure out how a blacksmith with 0 spiritual energy could order someone like Su Yao around. "Don't look so tense. Have a seat." I pulled over an iron stool with a friendly, neighborly smile. The girl, Mu Shui, hesitated before murmuring a quick thank you, though she gripped her broken sword even tighter. Talk about high alert. Chu Feng brought out some water. Mu Shui took the chipped mug, her knuckles turning white from her tight grip, but she didn't drink a single drop. I thought, this girl is extremely cautious. So I asked half-jokingly, "Miss, how'd you fall from the sky? Did you crash your flying sword because you don't have a license?" Mu Shui let out a cold snort. "I was betrayed by my senior sister. I immediately made a show of looking around." She spoke coldly again. "Don't bother. Those hunting me are already 100 miles away." Turns out, her name was Mushu, once the star disciple of the Azure Cloud sect. But the sect master's daughter teamed up with outsiders to rip out her innate sword bone. Then they sent assassins after her. Having barely escaped, she ran completely out of spiritual energy due to her severe wounds and fell from the sky. Man, the cultivation world is brutal. I sighed inwardly. Fortunately, the system had already laid out her entire family history for me. "Miss Mu, how about you become my disciple?" On a whim, I tossed my sweat rag aside. The sudden proposal made Chu Feng drop his teapot in shock. Su Yao's eyes, however, lit up. "Finally, a junior sister." Mu Shui froze, staring at me in utter disbelief. "How do you know my last name?" "Just tell me, are you joining or not?" I asked again with a warm smile. I could see her digging her nails into her palms, completely baffled as to how Immortal Blacksmith knew her secrets and had an early Foundation establishment disciple serving him. "My master is insanely powerful," Chu Feng chimed in helpfully. His worshipful look really boosted my ego. "Fine." Mu Shui finally agreed. probably figuring that since her sword bone was gone and her life was ruined, it didn't matter who she took as a master. From today on, you are my third disciple, Lin Fans. I happily pointed to Su Yao and Chu Feng. Meet your eldest senior sister and second senior brother. Mu Shui respectfully performed the master-disciple bow, but when she looked up and saw Su Yao, she froze. Such a little kid was the eldest? Hello, junior sister, Su Yao chirped, putting her hands behind her back like an old master. Her adorable act made us all laugh. In the cultivation world, strength is everything anyway. Who cares about age? I told Su Yao to take Mu Shui to wash up, and she immediately dragged her off. She ran inside like she just found a brand new toy. Ding! Congrats, host, on recruiting your third disciple. Reward pack granted. Invincible Vajra body upgraded to indestructible chaos body, and absolute defense is now unlocked. Plus, a cheat skill called Begone. I stared at the glowing system panel and frowned. Indestructible chaos body sounded intimidating, but absolute defense was way too low-key. I tried chanting it in my head, but not even a single spark popped up on me. It was like nothing happened. I wondered if this was some cheap knockoff. System, get out here. What does this actually do? Ding! Absolute defense is passive. No activation needed. It ignores all worldly laws, granting immunity to any and all damage. And it reflects 100% of physical impacts. Wow, sounds pretty badass. But what about my disciple Mu Shui's Begone skill? Ding. Just place hands on hips, step forward with the left foot, and shout Begone 3 times to form an invincible repelling aura. It forcefully repels any attack or enemy, ignoring level differences completely. My mouth twitched. So it is basically a force displacement skill. This system's rewards are so random, it literally has a square dancing grandma vibe. As I was silently complaining, a freshly cleaned Mu Shui pushed open the door. The bloody girl from earlier was now wearing simple, coarse clothes, but her icy elegance still shone through. Standing there like a walking iceberg, she chilled the whole yard. I looked her over and finally spoke up, asking her how she felt. I went ahead and reattached your sword bone for you. Mu Shui froze in shock, while Chu Feng stomped his feet in excitement next to her. Try it, junior sister. Master's gifts are always insanely powerful. I watched her skeptically close her eyes. Suddenly, she shuddered, and a towering sword intent erupted from her, piercing the clouds. My lost sword bone, it is back, and stronger than ever. She looked up at me like she had just seen a ghost. I waved my hand nonchalantly. Basic stuff, no big deal. Here is a life-saving trick. If you are in danger, put hands on hips, step forward with your left foot, and shout Begone 3 times. Mu Shui froze, her icy composure completely cracking. That kid rubbed his hands excitedly. Master, I want to spar with junior sister and test this new skill. Let's go. I waved, leading all 3 to the backyard. Passing the locked room, I noticed Mu Shui casting a curious glance inside. In the backyard, Chu Feng took his stance. Don't hold back, junior sister. Mu Shui looked at me, hesitating. I nodded, and she sighed. Excuse me then, senior brother. Before the words even finished, she blurred into motion, rushing straight at him. I could tell she held back, probably afraid of hurting her goofy senior brother. But suddenly, Chu Feng squatted, hugged his head, and screamed, I am a little mushroom! He instantly froze in place, completely safe. I facepalmed in utter disbelief. This idiot was using my divine skills just to goof off. Mu Shui's attack kept going, but right before her finger touched his clothes, her fierce sword chi took a bizarre detour, blasting a massive, half-meter-deep hole into the dirt. Shrapnel flew right past Chu Feng's legs. Refusing to believe it, Mu Shui struck again with more power. But the sword chi acted like it hit a magnet, making a sharp 90-degree turn and smashing a nearby tree. Chu Feng was still shivering in his squat. Is my invincible mushroom shield awesome or what? I rubbed my chin, loving the show. This skill was literally grinding the laws of physics into the dirt. Next to me, Su Yao clapped excitedly, eyes sparkling, like she had found a shiny new toy. My turn. My turn. Chu Feng stood up, rubbing his hands in anticipation. Come on, show us that Begone move. I noticed Mu Shui's ears immediately flushing red, her mouth open slightly, hesitant. But how could an icy beauty perform such an incredibly embarrassing pose and chant? She shot me a pleading look, but I just grinned and shouted to Chu Feng, You better use your full power. Chu Feng stiffened up, but there was no backing out now. Sinking his breath, lightning erupted from his body. He threw a punch packed with violent thunder directly at her face. Desperate, Mu Shui closed her eyes, slammed hands on hips, stepped forward and screamed, "Begone!" Her face turned red as a beet. Boom! To our absolute shock, Chu Feng flew backward like he was hit by a speeding bullet train, 10 times faster than his initial charge. He drew a perfect arc across the sky and soared right out of the town limits, completely disappearing. Gone. The yard went dead silent. Su Yao stood there with her mouth wide open, dropping her half-eaten cucumber. Mu Shui stared blankly at her own hands in utter disbelief. I swallowed hard, thinking to myself, what on earth is this? This is literally a human cannon. It took a full half hour for Chu Feng to crawl back, covered in dirt with his hair looking like a bird nest. He looked at Mu Shui with absolute awe. "Junior sister, that was brutal. I almost met my ancestors." Mu Shui flushed and lowered her head, murmuring a soft apology. I burst out laughing. All right. From now on, this is our shop's signature show. You all did great. Tonight, we feast on roasted bear paw. Over the next few days, the shop returned to its peaceful routine. Every morning, I foraged with Chu Feng, Su Yao cooked, and Mu Shui chopped wood. But that rusty axe I gave her was actually a fragment of the ancient heaven-splitting axe. Every swing was tempering her body, and her Nirvana 9-cycle sword bone. She felt wronged at first, a genius sword cultivator reduced to chopping wood. But once she realized her spiritual energy was 10 times purer and her sword bone started glowing golden, she chopped wood more eagerly than anyone else. She even skipped sleep, almost turning all our logs into toothpicks. One afternoon, Chu Feng was hammering shirtless by the forge, sweat pouring down his muscles. I relaxed on my lounge chair, sipping some premium spiritual tea brewed by Su Yao. Life was incredibly peaceful. Suddenly, our front door was kicked open with a massive bang. The door flew into the yard and slammed right onto the anvil, sparking everywhere. I frowned and sat up. Who has the nerve to kick my door down? Several people in green robes stood there. The leader was a sketchy-looking man radiating golden core pressure. Behind him stood a young woman, nose in the air, dressed in luxury, and holding a glowing sword. One look, and I knew trouble had arrived. The moment Mu Shui saw that woman, she froze. She trembled with rage, her eyes turning blood red as she spat out a name, Liu Ruyan. So, this was the young mistress who had stolen my disciple's sword bone. That girl, Liu Ruyan, sneered as she scanned our rundown yard, her eyes finally locking onto Mu Shui. Covering her mouth, she giggled. I wondered where you ran off to. Turns out you are hiding in this filthy blacksmith shop as a peasant. Life without your sword bone must be tough. Mu Shui shook with fury, raising her axe to charge, but Chu Feng held her back. He stood protectively in front of her, holding a glowing red-hot hammer, staring coldly at them. Who do you think you are, causing trouble on my master's turf? The elder sneered. A lowly mortal dared to speak so boldly? I am the elder of the Qingyun sword sect, here to arrest our sect's traitor. Hand her over now, or we will flatten your pathetic shop. I chuckled, slowly rising from my chair and brushing off the dust. Qingyun sword sect? Never heard of them. But anyone under my roof is mine. You broke my door. How are you paying for that? The elder laughed like it was a joke. A mortal ant with zero cultivation dared to demand compensation from a golden core master? His eyes went cold, and he slashed a wave of sharp sword chi right at my face. Chu Feng panicked. Master, look out! He threw himself in front of me without hesitation, squatting down and covering his head. I am a little mushroom. That deadly slash, capable of cutting a man in half, hit a foot away and vanished like mud sinking into the ocean, disappearing without a trace. The intruders were completely dumbfounded. Liu Ruyan's eyes widened. How? Elder Wang's strike didn't even scratch his clothes. Elder Wang was equally shocked. His prideful golden core sword chi had been blocked so easily by such a ridiculous posture. Chu Feng looked up and grinned. Is that all? Didn't even tickle. Shamed into a frenzy, Elder Wang drew his sword. Stop playing tricks. Die. He transformed into a flash of green light, streaking toward Chu Feng. This was the Qingyun sect's ultimate move, unavoidable and deadly. Chu Feng knew it was powerful, but he didn't move an inch, just squatting there. With a deafening boom, the strike hit him dead on. But a bizarre scene occurred. Elder Wang felt as if his weapon had struck an unshakable holy mountain. A massive shockwave rebounded fiercely right along the blade. Crack! His proud earth-grade sword shattered into pieces. It cracked into a million pieces. Elder Wang coughed up blood, flying backward and crashing near the gate, his eyes filled with terror. What kind of sorcery is this? Liu Ruyan went pale, backing away. Chu Feng stood up and patted his pants. looking incredibly pleased. The invincible mushroom shield my master taught me is unbeatable. I nodded in approval. The kid was usually silly, but he stepped up when it mattered. Watching this, tears welled in Mu Shui's eyes. Back at her old sect, she was a genius, but constantly schemed against. No one had ever protected her so unconditionally. Chu Feng turned to Lu Ruyan, his gaze freezing. You stole my sister's sword bone. Don't expect to leave here in one piece. She forced herself to stay calm, screaming, Do you dare touch me? My father is a nascent soul powerhouse. Touch one finger on me, and my sect will tear you to pieces. I picked my ears, walked over to Chu Feng, and took the rusty iron hammer from his hand. Disciple, why waste words on trash? If you can smash them, don't talk. I weighed the hammer, looking at Lu Ruyan. Your dad is a nascent soul expert? Big deal. I'll teach you a lesson for him. She stared at my zero cultivation self, panicked, walking closer with a rusty tool. Panic flashed in her eyes, but she drew her radiant sword anyway. Back off. This is a heaven-grade sword. Slaying a mortal like you takes a single thought. I completely ignored her and casually swung my hammer down. Lu Ruyan raised her sword in panic. Clang! Before everyone's disbelief, her ultimate heaven-grade sword, famous for cutting steel like butter, shattered like cheap glass under my rusty forging hammer, exploding into a million pieces. And it didn't even stop there. The hammer's momentum didn't fade, smashing right down her arm. With a loud bang, Liu Ruyan screamed and fell to her knees, her sword hand completely fractured. The cultivation she was so proud of was instantly destroyed by my single strike. The entire crowd fell dead silent. Elder Wang lay on the ground, trembling, too terrified to even breathe. A mortal shattering a heaven-grade sword and ruining a genius with one swing? Is this guy even human? He is a monster! Mu Shui stared blankly at me, tears finally streaming down his face. He thought he could never get revenge, but my casual hammer blow had just dragged his unreachable enemy into the dirt. I tossed the hammer to Chu Feng and looked at Mu Shui. Go on, finish the rest yourself. Taking a deep breath, he wiped away his tears and walked toward Lu Ruyan with his rusty axe. She had lost all her high and mighty pride, scrambling backward in sheer terror. Stay back! I will give your sword bone back! Just spare me! Mu Shui's eyes turned ice cold. My sword bone has already been rebuilt by master. Your filthy bone disgusts me. You dug out mine and cut off my path back then. Today, I sever yours. The axe came down, and Lu Ruyan shrieked like a slaughtered pig, completely crippled. Seeing things go south, Elder Wang scrambled to flee the courtyard. I sneered. Leaving so soon? You still owe me for the door? I grabbed a broken piece of wood and hurled it. It slammed into Elder Wang's back. He spat blood and knocked out cold. Throw these two pieces of trash out and don't let them dirty our yard. I yawned and turned back inside to catch up on my afternoon nap. Chu Feng hauled the two of them out like wet chickens and tossed them onto the street, drawing a massive crowd. Mu Shui stood in the yard, staring at my back. Suddenly, he fell to his knees, kowtowing 3 times. Your grace is unforgettable, master. From today on, my life is yours. I waved my hand without even looking back. Just chop the wood and don't slack off. Save room for dinner. Honestly, I felt incredibly awesome inside. That was a flawless performance. If I wasn't worried about breaking character, I would have laughed out loud. That night, Su Yao cooked a feast, a goose stewed with 100-year-old wild herbs. The rich aroma drifted down the entire street. We gathered around the stone table to feast. Mu Shui, politely, but his chopsticks were lightning fast. He had clearly let go of his burdens and joined our eccentric little blacksmith shop. Over dinner, I casually mentioned that the Tianxuan sect's grand disciple recruitment was about to start. The town would be packed, so let's go check it out and buy some premium iron ore. Chu Feng's eyes lit up immediately. Master, are you recruiting again? I glared at him. Recruit who? Having you 3 around is already giving me headaches. I just want to see if there are cheap crystals. Chu Feng scratched his head and chuckled, while Mu Shui looked thoughtful. He knew the Tianxuan sect ruled this region, and that reincarnation of the 9 nether mystic maiden, Lung Qingchu, was one of theirs. Mentioning her brought back memories. I remembered blocking her on the street. She was as proud as a peacock. Who knows if we will cross paths again, but I do not care. As long as she leaves me alone, I will ignore her. After dinner, we retired to bed. But at midnight, the locked storage room started acting up again. That bronze sword casket began buzzing violently, rattling the wooden door. Tossed and turned, completely unable to sleep. I felt my temper rising. Is this broken box ever going to stop? Does it really think I am some pushover? Throwing on my robe, I stomped out to the yard. Chu Feng and Mu Shui were already standing there, staring at the door with grave faces. Master, is some ancient, peerless demon sealed inside? Chu Feng whispered. Demon, my foot. It is just a piece of scrap metal that needs a beating. I pulled out the key and unlocked the door. The sword casket was vibrating madly, glowing with a sinister blood-red light as a powerful wave of killing intent tried to break the seal. Mu Shui gasped in shock. What terrifying sword intent, master? What is hidden inside? I walked right up and delivered a hard kick to the casket. Shut up! It is midnight. If you keep making noise, I will melt you down to forge a gardening hoe tomorrow. As if understanding my threat, the red light flickered and actually quieted down. Though the residual aura still lingered in the room, my disciples were completely dumbfounded. A legendary ancient sword, kicked into absolute submission by 1 foot? They must be wondering just how unfathomably powerful their master really was. Yawning, I locked the door. Show is over, get some sleep. We have work early tomorrow. They bowed respectfully and left, eyes filled with absolute adoration. The next few days passed peacefully as Chu Feng and Mu Shui practiced forging under my strict guidance and chopping wood, yet their cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds. Chu Feng's lightning body grew highly refined, throwing purple sparks with every hammer strike. Mu Shui's special sword bone was also taking shape. Even though he still used that rusty axe to chop wood, each swing carried a subtle sword intent that could tear space. Meanwhile, Su Yao cooked for us using rare herbs, 1,000-year ginseng stewed with ribs, and snow lotus porridge. She fed us so well our physical bodies practically became monstrous. Finally, the day arrived for the Tianshuan sect's grand recruitment ceremony. The entire town was jam-packed with young talents and rogue cultivators seeking a bright future in the world's top sect. I brought my 3 disciples along, pushing a rickety wooden cart into the crowded market. The cart was loaded with handmade farming tools and iron pots. We claimed we were here to sell wares, but we really just wanted to enjoy the crowd and buy iron ore. Master, this sect is massive, Chu Feng marveled, staring at the huge white jade plaza. So what if it is big? It is just full of hypocritical snobs, Mu Shui sneered. He clearly had zero love for these righteous sects. I leaned against our cart, chewing on a piece of straw. Ignore them. We are selling pots, 5 low-grade stones each. No bargaining. Just as we set up our stall and prepared for business, an annoying voice scoffed nearby. Where did these bumpkins come from? Selling cheap garbage right outside our mountain gate. We raised our heads and looked over, only to see several inner disciples strutting over arrogantly. The leader was that male cultivator Long Qingqiu had used as a shield in the forest. I was surprised he survived the Golden Thunder Bear, though looking at his limping leg, he took a beating. He was clearly limping and heavily injured. Chu Feng recognized him instantly, his expression turning cold. Oh, look! It is senior brother Zhao, who ran faster than a rabbit that day. Still barking, even with a broken leg? Stunned to see him, Zhao glared, then snarled in rage. You despicable rogue cultivator! Not only did you steal the spirit fruit, but you almost got me killed by that beast. Since you dared show up on our turf today, do not think you are leaving alive. His lackeys immediately drew their swords and surrounded us. The crowd quickly dispersed, terrified of getting caught in the crossfire. I did not even look up, casually arranging my iron pots. Are you buying? If not, do not block my business. Old man, you are courting death. One disciple slashed at my stall, trying to chop my pots in half. Sitting on my wooden stool, I did not even flinch. Chu Feng sneered, reaching out and grabbing the incoming blade. With a sharp crack, the disciple's steel sword was snapped in half by Chu Feng's bare hand. What? The disciple stammered, backing away in horror. Chu Feng brushed off his palms. Showing off such garbage in front of my master? Senior brother Zhao's eyes practically popped out. He had witnessed Chu Feng's terrifying strength in the forest and knew they stood no chance. He gritted his teeth. Just you wait! Do not run away! He and his lackeys scrambled back inside the mountain gate. Mu Shui frowned. Master, we just offended the Tianshuan sect, and there will be trouble. I yawned. Trouble? I, Lin Fan, have never feared trouble. I am keeping my stall right here, and we will see who dares to move me. Sure enough, a massive crowd of disciples soon marched out from the mountain gate, led by a white-haired elder radiating the terrifying pressure of the nascent soul stage. He was an outer elder. Right behind him, alongside senior brother Zhao, was a familiar figure in a crimson dress, looking cold and proud. It was indeed Leng Qingqiu. Chu Feng glared at her with killing intent. Master, that is the woman who set us up in the forest. I smirked. Ah, an old friend. Lung Qingqiu noticed us too. Her gaze swept over me, her eyes flashing with a trace of contempt, before locking onto Chu Feng. You escaped last time, kid. Hand over the spiritual fruit now. I leaned back lazily. We already used that fruit for soup. If you want some, there might be a few digested scraps in my disciple's stomach. Do you want it? The surrounding crowd gasped in horror. Was this mortal blacksmith insane? How did he dare speak like that to a sect elder in the Nine Nether reincarnation? Leng Qingqiu's face flushed with rage. You arrogant fool! How dare you ruin such a divine treasure? To make soup with a 9-colored fruit. Ruin it? I sneered. My disciple risked his life for that prize. We can eat it however we damn well please. What is it to you? The outer, elder bellowed. Arrogant mortal! Today, I will enforce justice and teach you fools a lesson. He raised his hand, and a massive spiritual palm materialized in the air, crashing down toward our small stall with the force of a collapsing mountain. If that blow connected, it would not just crush us to dust. It would leave a giant crater in the street. Chu Feng roared. Stepping up to block it, Mu Shui drew his axe, and Su Yao raised a heavy iron wok. At that critical second, I slowly stood up, casually holding my tattered paper fan. Facing that massive, terrifying spiritual hand, I gave a lazy wave as if shooing a fly. With a deafening explosion, the devastating attack instantly dissolved under my simple fan wave. Even worse, a violent shock wave surged in the opposite direction, blasting the outer elder off his feet. He sprayed blood into the air and slammed hard into the grand arch of the Tiangshuan sect, shattering the solid white jade columns into spiderweb cracks. The crowd fell dead silent, staring at me like I was a literal monster. A mortal with a broken paper fan just blew away a nascent soul expert? This had to be a dream. Leng Qingqiu stood frozen. Her usually stoic, icy face was filled with sheer terror. She finally understood why I told her that day that apprenticing under me was a massive bargain. I was no helpless mortal, but a terrifyingly powerful hidden master. Who on earth are you? She stammered. I tucked the fan back into my belt and shrugged. Like I said, I just sell pots. 5 low-grade spiritual stones apiece. Does your grand sect want to buy some to cook dinner? Qingqiu bit his lip, eyes flashing as something clicked. Ignoring the crowd, he stepped forward and bowed deeply to me. Senior, you are a hidden master. I was blind to your greatness. Would you be willing to condescend to join Tiangshuan sect as a guest elder? I wish to become your disciple. The crowd erupted again. The legendary reincarnation of the Nine Nether goddess, the proudest daughter of Tiangshuan sect, was actually begging to apprentice to a humble blacksmith. I stared at her calculating face, sneering inside. Talk about an opportunist. Now that she knows my power, she wants to cling to me? Too late. I smirked. Sorry, but I only take good-looking disciples. You're just too ugly for my shop's aesthetic standards. Lung Qingqiu shook with rage. Nobody had ever dared call her ugly. It was a supreme insult. But before she could explode, deep within Tianshuan, a deep bell tolled. Seconds later, several immensely powerful auras shot into the sky from the mountain peaks, rushing right toward the gate. Oh no, we've provoked the Grand Elders. The crowd panicked and retreated. I looked up at those blinding lights in the sky, silently complaining. Beat the kid. Get the elder. Beat the elder. Get the ancestor. Is there no originality in this cultivation world? Oh well, since things have escalated, let's make a real mess. I turned to Chufeng and Mushui. Disciples, today I will teach you the most practical trick for solving problems. Please guide us, master. They replied together. I picked up that beat-up iron hammer I'd used to smash Liu Ruin, slung it over my shoulder, and faced those arrogant cultivators. Remember, as long as your hammer is hard enough, all those fancy spells are completely useless. Just then, the Grand Elders landed before us. All of them were at the soul transformation stage, their auras terrifying. Who dares run wild at our gates? The leading Great Elder glared furiously at the half-dead outer sect elder on the ground, his eyes burning with rage. Lung Qingqiu rushed over, twisting the story to make us look as arrogant and disrespectful as possible, and how we completely disregarded their sect. The Great Elder laughed in sheer fury. What a bold, hidden monster. Let's see what you're made of. He quickly formed hand seals, and a massive golden sword materialized in the sky, pointing straight at my forehead. The full-force strike of a soul transformation master completely locked down the space, leaving us nowhere to run. Chu Feng and Mu Shui went pale, but they still stood firmly in front of me. At that critical life-and-death moment, a sudden change occurred. From the distant town, a blood-red swordlight erupted into the sky, sharp enough to split the world in half. With a sky-shattering hum, a bronze-colored longsword surged forward, carrying overwhelming, killing intent. It flew like a meteor, blocking right in front of us. Covered in ancient runes, it emitted a terrifying aura that made my soul shiver. It was the ancient demonic sword from my storage room. It actually broke its own seal. In front of this demonic blade, the giant golden sword was like paper, instantly shredded by blood-red sword chi. The great elder groaned, his face turning paper white with absolute terror. Is that the legendary heaven-slaying blood sword? It has actually returned to the world. The blood sword circled in the air, searching for something, before diving sharply and stabbing into the ground right by Mu Shui's feet. Its blade hummed joyfully, as if trying to please its master. A dead silence fell. Everyone was dumbfounded. This legendary, world-destroying ancient sword had actually chosen a little wood-chopping girl as its master. Mu Shui was utterly dazed, staring blankly at the terrifying blood sword at her feet, her mind completely blank. I was highly amused. No wonder that stupid sword kept howling at night. It wanted Mu Shui's 9-cycle rebirth swordbone. It actually had some taste. Just as everyone was reeling from the shock, the distant sky tore open, revealing a massive black rift. A giant eye that blotted out the sky slowly opened, its cold, lifeless gaze sweeping across the earth before locking onto Mu Zhou and her sword. A booming, majestic voice echoed in everyone's minds. When the blood sword appears, the world must perish. We, the divine sovereigns of the upper realm, will never allow such evil to exist. The aura was so crushing that even the soul transformation grand elders were pinned to the ground. Lung Qingchu turned pale with fright. The entire mountain shook as if doomsday had arrived. Chu Feng grit his teeth. Though his bones creaked under the immense pressure, he still stood straight to shield Mu Shui. She gripped her blood sword. Though pale, her eyes burned with fierce resolve. Looking at that giant eye playing God in the sky, I picked my ear in sheer annoyance. Hey, big eyeball up there. You are way too noisy. My disciple just got a new toy. Shut up, or I'll climb up there, pluck your eyeball out, and pickle it. As I spoke, my beat-up hammer emitted a faint black glow that froze the entire space. A world-shaking battle seemed about to explode between my team and this god. But to me, I was just annoyed that my dinner might be delayed. That really ticked me off. The giant eye was clearly enraged by my words. A massive, barrel-thick purple lightning bolt shot straight down from the rift, aiming right at my head. Cultivators below shrieked in terror, scrambling to escape the world-destroying blast. The great elder closed his eyes in utter despair. Under this divine wrath, nobody could survive. The entire Tianquan sect was going to be wiped out with us. Behind me, my disciples' eyes burned with desperation as they tried to shield me. Without turning around, I barked, "Stay put! Watch how your master works, the forge." I bent my knees, drove power from my hips, and swung my hammer. I swung that unimposing, beat-up hammer straight at the descending purple lightning. There was no massive explosion or flashy magic, only a dull, heavy thud. At that exact moment, everyone witnessed a sight they would never forget. The earth-shattering purple lightning was smashed by my hammer like a fragile glass tube, shattering into tiny sparks that vanished into thin air. The giant eye dilated in shock, as if witnessing something absolutely terrifying. Before it could react, I leaped into the air like a cannonball. Following the lightning's path, I swung my hammer violently at the rift in the sky. This single strike carried all the frustration of my 1,000 days of blacksmithing. Boom! The sky shattered under my blow. A blood-curdling shriek echoed from the rift as the high and mighty eyeball burst open. A shower of golden blood poured down, drenching the plaza of Tianquan sect. The rift violently shook and closed, and the sky returned to normal, as if the apocalypse was just an illusion. I landed lightly, brushed the dust off my hands, and spat. Bah. Upper realm god? You couldn't even take one hit, and you dared to come down here to show off? The plaza was dead silent. Everyone stared at me as if I were a living god. The great elder's knees buckled, and he fell to the ground. The disciples quickly followed suit. In front of absolute power, sect pride was a joke. Shaking all over, cold sweat soaking his robes, the great elder whimpered, "Senior, your power is unmatched. Our sect is willing to serve you unconditionally." I casually tossed my hammer into the wooden cart, pushed it forward, and called my disciples. "Let's go home for dinner. I wouldn't visit this dump again if paid." Passing Lung Qingchu, she kept her head down, too terrified to breathe. I ignored her entirely. I led my disciples out of the sect. Back at the blacksmith shop, Su Yao had dinner ready. She'd somehow cooked a pheasant that looked like a phoenix, its aroma filling the yard. During dinner, Mu Shui wouldn't let go of that heaven-slaying bloodsword. Chu Feng was wildly gesturing, showing Su Yao how I shattered the lightning. Master, that strike was incredibly cool. Teach me, Chu Feng begged, his eyes shining with excitement. I picked up a piece of meat. Once you can swing a perfect hammer 10,000 times in one go, I'll teach you. Chu Feng slumped, though determination burned in his eyes. Mu Shui watched me with deep reverence. Without me, she'd still be running for her life, and this ancient sword would never have submitted to her. Full and satisfied, I relaxed in my rocking chair, watching the stars and planning my next move. The system gave great rewards, but my cultivation seal was barely unlocked. To break it, I had to keep recruiting disciples. Looks like my blacksmith days weren't over yet. Just then, the system chimed in my head. Ding! Rare forging materials detected in an ancient ruin 1,000 miles away. The host is advised to collect them. Premium materials. That's perfect for my forge. The next morning, I gathered my disciples and packed our bags. Master, where are we heading? Chu Feng asked. A giant iron pot strapped to his back. To mine some ore, I replied, with a wave of my hand. Let's go find some real treasure. The ancient ruins sat deep in a misty swamp. Danger lurked everywhere, teeming with toxic beasts that even golden core cultivators feared. The four of us marched through the mud, while Su Yao sat on Chu Feng's shoulders, happily munching on a candied haw. Mu Shui led the way with her blood sword. Any beasts getting too close were shredded to mincemeat by her sword chi. Suddenly, ahead in the mist, fierce fighting and desperate cries broke out. We approached to find several Tiangxuan sect disciples surrounded by a dozen spiked poison crocodiles. The leader was none other than Lung Qingqiu, covered in blood and completely drained of energy. Her sword was chipped, and she was about to become crocodile bait. Talk about a small world. Chu Feng gloated. I rubbed my chin, watching this play out. It wasn't that I was feeling merciful, but those crocodile skins looked incredibly tough. They'd make excellent blacksmithing aprons. Chu Feng, go harvest some crocodile skins for me, I ordered. Chu Feng grinned. On it, master. He charged into the pack without using spells, simply squatting down and yelling, I'm a little mushroom. The crocodile's heavy bites struck his shield, the recoil dazing them instantly. Mu Shui seized the chance, drawing her blood sword. In seconds, the beasts were decapitated. The entire process took less than half an incense stick of time. Lung Qingqiu and the remaining Tiangxuan sect disciples were completely dumbfounded. The monsters they had risked their lives to fight, yet still couldn't defeat, were sliced through like vegetables in the hands of these two. Lung Qingqiu stared at me blankly, her eyes filled with an extremely complex expression, part humiliation, part shock, but mostly an undeniable burning desire. Stumbling over to me, she fell to her knees with a thud. Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. I have no way to repay you, but I am willing to serve you as your loyal servant. I waved my hand. Don't get ahead of yourself. I only did it because I had my eyes on those crocodile skins. It was just a side task. Lung Qingqiu gritted her teeth. Senior, I know I was blind before, but I am the reincarnation of the Nine Nether mysterious goddess. If you take me in, I will surely be of use to you. I rolled my eyes. The Nine Nether, mysterious goddess reincarnation? Is that supposed to be rare? My eldest disciple can shatter a mountain with one punch. My second disciple is immune to physical attacks. My third disciple wields an ancient lethal arrow. What can you do besides show off your attitude? Lung Qingqiu was left speechless by my rebuff, her eyes turning red. As the proud, favored daughter of heaven, when had she ever suffered such humiliation? Yet, she knew I spoke the truth. In my blacksmith shop, the talent she was so proud of was completely worthless. Ignoring her, I had Chu Feng skin the crocodiles, and we kept heading deeper into the ruins. But Lung Qingqiu gritted her teeth, and leading the rest of her crew, followed us from a distance. She seemed determined to cling to us. I couldn't be bothered to care, as long as she didn't get in the way. Deep within the ruins was a massive underground palace. It was dark and eerie, filled with broken walls and piles of white bones. Then, a system notification popped up, saying the legendary materials were at the very depths of the palace. We smashed our way through. Chu Feng's mushroom shield and Mu Shui's Bagan skill worked in flawless synergy, plowing through enemies like a bulldozer. Finally, we reached the end of the palace. There were no piles of gold or silver treasures here, nor any peerless cultivation manuals. Only a massive bronze altar stood in the center, holding an ancient, patina-covered bronze coffin The legendary materials indicated by the system turned out to be the bronze coffin itself. As I was wondering how on earth I was going to carry this massive thing back, a sudden, bizarre noise echoed from inside. A hair-raising, skin-crawling scratching sound came from within, as if some terrifying creature was trying to claw its way out. Chu Feng and Mu Shui immediately gripped their weapons, tense and on high alert. Behind us, Lung Qingqiu and her group shrieked and scrambled backward in utter terror. Right at that moment, Su Yao suddenly broke free from Chu Feng's grip and toddled on her short little legs toward the coffin. "Yao Yao, come back, it's dangerous," Chu Feng yelled in a panic. I reached out and stopped him, because I noticed Su Yao's eyes had gone completely blank, as if she were under some sort of ancient summons. She walked right up to the coffin and reached out her chubby little hand, gently pressing it against the array-covered bronze lid. With a loud crack, the powerful seal, which not even a deity transformation stage master could ever budge, shattered to pieces under her simple touch. As the heavy lid slowly slid down, a wave of ancient, timeless aura rushed out, washing over us. Peering inside, we saw absolutely no decayed corpse at all. Instead, there was only a mysterious jade pendant emitting a soft, gentle glow, alongside a beast skin scroll covered entirely in ancient, unreadable writing. Even more bizarrely, a long, deep sigh echoed from deep within the empty coffin. What made my skin crawl was that the eerie voice actually sounded exactly like Su Yao's usual voice, only carrying a heavy trace of ancient weariness from surviving endless ages. Where on earth did this forgotten ruin come from? What kind of shocking secrets were hidden in Su Yao's true origins? And what kind of chaos would this mysterious jade pendant bring to our blacksmith shop? I stroked my chin thoughtfully, while watching Su Yao gradually regain her clarity of mind. A deeply meaningful, amused smile played on my lips. It seemed that my peaceful and quiet blacksmith life was destined to get a whole lot more lively after all. Just as Su Yao's chubby little hand made contact with that softly glowing jade pendant, the entire underground palace violently shuddered. The jade pendant instantly transformed into a streak of light and shot directly into the space between Su Yao's brows. The little girl blinked her large eyes and rubbed her forehead, seemingly feeling absolutely nothing. But with my eye of truth, I could see it crystal clear. The spiritual energy inside her body was like a purging volcano that had been completely dormant for 10 million years, suddenly showing the first signs of awakening. The weary sigh from before vanished entirely, replaced by an ancient, overwhelming pressure that made everyone want to fall to their knees in worship. But this terrifying sovereign aura lasted for less than a single second before Su Yao turned back and grinned at me. "Brother Fan, I'm hungry. I want roasted sweet potatoes." I let out a long sigh of relief. Who cares if her past life was some world-shaking figure? Right now, she was just my eldest disciple who only knew how to eat. I walked over and rubbed her little head. "We'll roast some once we're home." Then, my eyes fell back onto the giant bronze coffin. The top-grade artifact refining material indicated by the system was indeed this very thing. Just as I was worrying about how to carry it back, that system of mine, which usually loved pretending to be dead, suddenly chimed in my mind. "Ding! Congratulations on acquiring the ancient divine object, the bronze coffin of creation, converting automatically into a divine-grade blacksmith anvil." The very moment the system's mechanical voice faded, the giant bronze coffin began to rapidly shrink in a flash of blinding light. It turned into a perfectly square, ancient, and incredibly heavy bronze anvil, landing firmly right at my feet. Its surface was covered in mottled marks of passing ages. I nodded in deep satisfaction. This system of mine might give out some rather bizarre skills, but it certainly knew how to deliver incredibly nice gifts. Meanwhile, Chu Feng and Mu Shui's jaws nearly hit the floor. Such a massive, mysterious coffin, with a seal that not even a deity transformation stage master could ever easily crack, had actually been turned into a mere backing block for blacksmithing. "Master, this is simply stealing the very creation of heaven and earth." Chu Feng was stammering with pure, unadulterated excitement. I casually stuffed that ancient beastskin scroll into my robes, reached down, and effortlessly picked up the heavy bronze anvil with one single hand. Noticing the weight of the bronze anvil was absolutely perfect. "Let's go. Time to head back. I'll make you some nice crocodile skin aprons once we're home." Lung Qingqiu stood in the corner with the surviving Tianquan sect disciples, watching us effortlessly sweep up the supreme treasures of this ancient ruin like water flowing. They didn't even dare to breathe until we were far away. Only then did she grit her teeth, a look of absolute determination flashing in her eyes. "Follow them. Even if I have to sweep the floors at the entrance of his blacksmith shop, I must stay by that senior's side. Once back at our blacksmith shop in town, life seemed to return to its peaceful routine. I placed that bronze anvil of creation right in the center of the yard. Instantly, the spiritual energy in the entire courtyard became more than 10 times richer. Even the half-dead, crooked-neck tree in the corner overnight sprouted fresh buds and bloomed with a few small white flowers full of spiritual energy. Chu Feng now worked shirtless every day, hammering iron on this bronze anvil. The sweat had barely dripped from his skin before being vaporized by that ancient aura. His annihilation lightning physique actually grew stronger by several levels without him even realizing it. Every single strike of his hammer now echoed with faint rumbling thunder and ancient Sanskrit chanting. The town's neighbors even started to suspect that we had completely closed down our blacksmith business to perform religious exorcism rituals instead. Meanwhile, I threw all those venomous crocodile skins we brought back to Su Yao, letting her randomly snip and sew them into a few absolutely hideous-looking aprons. I handed one to Chu Feng and another to Mu Shui. Mu Shui stared at the crooked, threadbare crocodile skin apron, a rare trace of hesitation appearing on her cold, detached face, though she still obediently put it on. The very moment she did, the heavenly snow sword resting inside her body let out an incredibly excited chime. This was no ordinary, shoddy apron. Once sewn by Su Yao's little hands, which were stained with the power of creation, the venomous crocodile skin actually transformed into a top-grade inner armor capable of blocking a full-strength blow from a deity transformation master. Feeling the terrifying defensive power of the apron, Mu Shui's eyes welled up with tears again. Master is simply too good to us. Even an apron he casually whipped up is such a peerless treasure. Meanwhile, I lay back on my rocking chair, waving my cattail fan, bursting with laughter as I watched them work in those hideous aprons. What? Peerless treasure? I honestly just thought that with all the sparks flying around while forging, they'd easily burn their own clothes. Meanwhile, a scenic view had appeared right outside my shop door. Leng Qingchu, the proud daughter of heaven and reincarnation of the nine-nether mysterious goddess, had actually built a shoddy straw shack directly opposite our blacksmith shop. Every single morning before dawn, she'd get up to sweep the street in front of our door and even volunteered for our trash dumping chores. The town's young men would wander around the streets completely aimlessly every day just to catch a glimpse of this once lofty goddess holding a massive broom and sweeping dirt. Every time Chu Feng went out to dump furnace slag, he'd intentionally kick up a huge cloud of ash, leaving Leng Qingchu coughing fit to burst. Junior sister, look at that crazy woman. She still hasn't given up hope. Chu Feng nudged Mu Shui, who was busy chopping firewood, winking mischievously. Mu Shui didn't even cast a single glance outside. The battered axe in her hand, infused with space-tearing sword intent, slammed down onto a log of profound iron wood. Don't get distracted. Master said if we don't finish chopping these logs today, no dinner for us. Hearing every single word clearly from outside, Leng Qingchu's knuckles turned stark white around her broom handle, but she forcefully suppressed her rising temper. She had noticed that ever since she started sweeping outside our blacksmith shop, simply absorbing the stray spiritual energy leaking from our courtyard daily had actually caused her stagnant, long, bottlenecked cultivation to finally show signs of loosen up. This only solidified her absolute determination to cling to my thigh. The days passed by one after another. I checked in daily to claim divine-grade materials, drank tea, and took peaceful naps. Meanwhile, the seal on my high cultivation was slowly unlocking, creeping along at a total snail's pace, just a tiny bit. I figured that slapping a Mahayana stage cultivator to death now shouldn't be an issue at all, but outwardly, I remained a total mortal, with absolutely zero spiritual energy fluctuations. One afternoon, under a brilliant sun, I had just finished the big plate chicken made by Su Yao and was picking my teeth, when suddenly the sky became covered in dark, heavy clouds. An incredibly oppressive and suffocatingly bloody stench instantly enveloped the entire town. The once bustling streets fell into an absolute dead silence, and even the wind carried a sickening, metallic smell of fresh rust. Chu Feng's hammering froze instantly. He stared fixedly up at the sky, his hand squeezing his iron hammer so hard that deep finger indentations were left in the solid metal. His eyes instantly turned blood red, and his entire body involuntarily erupted with a violent, unrestrained power of annihilation. Master, it's them! Chu Feng's voice was incredibly raspy, sounding like rough sandpaper scraping together, carrying a bone-deep, unforgettable hatred. I sat upright on my chair and spat out the toothpick from my mouth. Who are they? The Blood Fiend sect. They wiped out my entire Chu family. Chu Feng gritted his teeth, his body trembling violently from intense, boiling fury. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, so it's those bastards. Last time, they only sent 2 weaklings with scimitars to die, and this time they have actually mobilized in full force. The massive blood-colored cloud in the sky slowly pressed down. Hundreds of cultivators clad in blood-red robes appeared directly above our little town, riding on flying swords. Leading them was a gaunt-faced, withered elder, whose body radiated the terrifying pressure of the void refinement stage. The blood mist surrounding him even coalesced into physical skulls, wailing in midair. This was Blood Wuya, the notorious sect master of the Blood Fiend sect. Looking down at the town below, his screeching voice grated like a broken brass gong. Little remnant of the Chu family, this sect master knows you are hiding here. Hand over that thing of yours, and this sect master might leave you with an intact corpse. Otherwise, every single living creature in this town will be buried alongside you today. Terrified, the townsfolk fled into their houses, shivering in fear. Leng Qingqiu stood in the street holding her broom, her face deathly pale. The Blood Fiend sect was the most notorious demonic sect within 10,000 miles, executing all their deeds with extreme ruthlessness. Even her own Tiangxuan sect was unwilling to offend them lightly. She turned her head toward our blacksmith shop, only to find the courtyard abnormally calm. I stood up, stretched my arms, and walked over to Chu Feng's side. I patted him on the shoulder. My disciple, they've already brought the fight to our doorstep. Why has your hammer stopped? Chu Feng whipped his head around to look at me, his eyes bloodshot with tears welling up inside. Master, there are so many of them, and they even have a void refinement stage grandmaster. My worthless life is not worth saving, but I cannot drag you and my junior sisters down with me. I smacked him hard on the back of his head. What absolute bullcrap. Even if my disciple, Lin Fan's disciple, pokes a giant hole in the sky, I will back you up. Since they've come looking for trouble at our door today, let's settle this bloody debt once and for all. Go. Use the forging techniques I taught you, and shatter their bones to pieces, inch by inch. Chu Feng was stunned. He forcefully blinked back the tears that were about to fall, and then slammed his head onto the floor, giving me a heavy kowtow. Accepting the order, he grabbed his massive hammer weighing hundreds of pounds and strode out of the courtyard alone. He stood before hundreds of ruthless demon cultivators in the sky. Shui Wuya scoffed at the hammer, roaring with laughter. Ha ha ha! The Chu family, you useless remnant! Have you lost your mind, thinking a rusty blacksmith hammer can get you revenge? Tear him to pieces. A dozen Blood Fiend sect disciples at the Foundation Establishment and Golden Core stages sneered, diving down as their blood-red treasures flooded the sky, aiming straight at Chu Feng. Instead of retreating, he lunged forward, his eyes cold as knives. Activating his nirvanic lightning body, purple lightning wrapped around him and his hammer. Pushing off with explosive force, he shot into the sky like a cannonball. First strike, Ironbreaker. With a deafening crash, the leading 3 demon cultivators didn't even have time to scream. They were pulverized instantly by the lightning-infused strike. Even their souls were vaporized by the purple sparks. This wasn't blacksmithing, this was straight-up execution. The remaining cultivators were terrified and tried to retreat, but Chu Feng gave them no quarter. His hammer swung in an impenetrable blur. Every single strike brought down another demon. As a rain of blood drenched the town streets, Chu Feng stood there like a god of war, bathed in lightning and slaughter. Shui Wuya watched in utter shock. When this kid fled months ago, he was a useless nobody who hadn't even reached the chi condensation stage. How could he gain such terrifying power so quickly? You useless trash. Elders, activate the Blood Fiend array, he roared. 4 nascent soul elders immediately surrounded Chu Feng, violently waving their soul-summoning banners. Countless vicious ghosts poured out of the flags, morphing into a massive, blood-red cage that locked Chu Feng completely inside. Inside, crimson flames blazed furiously, trying to incinerate him. The fire was so corrosive it literally warped the space around them. As agonizing pain seared his skin, Chu Feng knew his current cultivation level couldn't withstand the combined power of 4 nascent soul experts, but he didn't panic. Instead, he casually tossed his hammer aside, squatted in midair with his hands over his head, and screamed at the top of his lungs, "I am a little mushroom." With a sudden hum, a bizarre ripple spread outward, and the blood-red flames and ghosts suddenly went blind. They swept right past his body, slamming hard into the opposite barrier of the formation. The 4 elders gasped as their own attacks rebounded entirely onto themselves, with the destructive power seeming to have grown even stronger. What kind of demonic spell is this? They shrieked in terror, desperately trying to recall their energy, but it was too late. The formation had devolved into total chaos. Chu Feng just squatted right in the center, calm as could be, while the ghosts and flames raged wildly around him. Finally, the barrier couldn't contain the violent, surging energy and exploded with a massive bang. Coughing up blood, the four nascent soul elders plummeted like broken kites. Chu Feng seized the moment to stand up and caught his falling hammer. With a sweeping swing, purple lightning condensed into a razor-sharp blade, instantly decapitating all four elders. Shui Wuya went completely insane. His mighty sect was being slaughtered by a junior with a blacksmith hammer. "You little bastard. I will skin you alive." Shui Wuya lunged forward. His terrifying void refinement pressure fell like a mountain, making every house in town tremble. A massive blood-red saber condensed in his grip, whistling with space-tearing force as it slashed down at Chu Feng's head. The strike locked onto Chu Feng completely, leaving no escape. Just as he prepared to squat down and play the mushroom again, a cold shout echoed from the shop. "Second senior brother. Step back." Out strode Mu Shui, wearing an ugly alligator skin apron and carrying her red sword of heaven's doom. She didn't draw her blade. Instead, she took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and awkwardly placed her hands on her hips. Stepping forward, her face flushed red as a ripe apple, facing that world-destroying strike. She gritted her teeth and shrieked 3 times. "Back, back, back." An indescribable, bizarre power erupted from her. No flashy lights, no deafening booms. The ferocious Shui Wuya, along with his massive blood-red saber, looked as if someone had hit the rewind button. He flew backward in a comically helpless stance. Not just him, but every remaining disciple in the sky was swept up by this invisible force and shot away with a loud whoosh right out of town, over the mountains, until they became tiny black dots on the horizon and vanished. They flew a full 10 miles. Chu Feng stood there, hammer on his shoulder, staring at the empty sky as his lips twitched. "Junior sister, this move is absolutely ridiculous, no matter how many times I see it." Mu Shui covered her face and fled back inside, dying of embarrassment. The townspeople cautiously peeked out their windows at the clear sky, collectively deciding to pretend nothing had happened. After living next to this blacksmith shop for so long, everyone had developed nerves of steel, let alone some flying cultists. Even if an immortal fell from the sky, they would just assume the blacksmith was testing another bizarre invention. Meanwhile, 10 miles away on a barren mountain, Shui Wuya was caught dangling from a tree, spitting blood in absolute rage. What kind of sorcery is this? A grand void refinement master like him had been blown away without even touching his target. If this got out, his sect would be the laughingstock of the world. "Hear my command. Activate the blood demon array and flatten that town." Completely mad, he bit his tongue and spat essence blood onto a black jade talisman. The dazed cultivators also sliced their wrists, pooling their blood in the sky. A massive crimson array that blotted out the sun slowly formed. Back in the courtyard, I was lazily cracking melon seeds when the sky suddenly went dark. Looking up, I saw a colossal shape condensing 10 miles away in the sky. It was a 3-headed, 6-armed phantom radiating a suffocating aura of death. Its sheer pressure had already surpassed the void refinement stage, reaching the threshold of the Mahayana realm. Chu Feng and Mu Shui looked incredibly grim. They knew a monster of this scale was far beyond their limit. "Master, that's their sect's guardian demon." Chu Feng choked, gripping his hammer for a final stand. I casually brushed off my hands and stood up, rather annoyed. Can't a guy just relax at noon? I strolled over to the creation bronze anvil, casually picked up a glowing red horseshoe that hadn't even been hammered yet, and weighed it in my palm. Then, I aimed directly at that roaring titan 10 miles away and tossed it casually like a dart. The moment that red-hot piece of iron left my hand, there was no earth-shaking boom. It sailed through the air in a completely ordinary arc. But to Sui Wuya and his men, the entire world seemed to flip upside down. That tiny horseshoe ballooned in their eyes, carrying a crushing force so terrifying that even the heavenly Tao would back away. It crossed 10 miles instantly, and with a soft thud, struck the massive demon right between its eyes. That supposedly immortal avatar, capable of withstanding attacks from Mahayana masters, didn't even manage to scream. Like a balloon pricked by a needle, it popped instantly, dissolving into a massive cloud of blood mist. But it didn't stop there. The horseshoe plowed right into Shui Wuya's chest. The Grand Sect Master didn't even have time for last words before his soul was utterly obliterated. Even the barren mountain behind him was completely leveled. leaving a massive crater in its place. The surviving disciples fell to their knees in sheer terror, trembling. The air was thick with the scent of copper and absolute dread. Back in the shop, I dusted off my hands and looked at Chu Feng. Revenge settled? Feel better? Chu Feng stared blankly at the vanished mountain, tears finally spilling over. He fell to his knees, kowtowing deeply to me 3 times as he burst into loud wails. All the grievances, fear, and hatred of the last 3 years dissolved into tears. Mu Shui stood nearby, her own eyes red as she gently patted his back. Su Yao rushed over with a clean handkerchief, whispering, "Don't cry, senior brother. I'll roast some sweet potatoes for you later." Watching them, I felt a wave of emotion. In this brutal cultivation world, killing is normal. But if anyone dares touch a single hair of my disciples, I will hunt them to the deepest hell just to scatter their ashes. All right, enough. A grown man crying like a baby. Clean up the yard, we need to light the forge. I waved them off, leaning back in my rocking chair. That throw was effortless, but I noticed the seal on my cultivation had loosened significantly. It seems protecting my disciples and settling karma is the key to unlocking my power. By evening, the streets had quieted down. The surviving cultists had scrambled back to their lair, probably too terrified to ever return. Lung Qingqiu silently swept the fallen leaves at the entrance, her hands trembling slightly. The way she looked at me wasn't just with respect anymore, she viewed me as a god. One-shotting a void refinement master with scrap metal? Even at the peak of her past life, she would have knelt and called me ancestor. Just as we sat down for dinner, a chubby kid stumbled around the corner. He was dressed in absolute rags, his face smudged with soot, clutching a battered black iron pot. He sniffled as he walked, his eyes darting around, muttering, "Smells so good." Guided by the aroma, he walked right up to our shop. His wide eyes locked onto the braised pork in Su Yao's hands, drool nearly dripping to the floor. I ignored him at first, until the sleeping system in my head screamed with a piercing alarm. Ding! Divine disciple detected. Possessor of the heaven-burning creation physique. Host must recruit him at all costs. I nearly choked on my tea, staring wide-eyed at the round, ball-like little beggar standing at my door. Seriously? The heaven-burning creation physique? Is your scanner broken, system? Sensing our gaze, the kid scratched his head awkwardly, giving a sheepish grin. Hey there, sirs. I'm Zhu Dacheng, a chef. I've been fleeing a famine and I'm just so hungry I can't even walk. Can you spare a bite? While I was scheming on how to trick him into becoming my disciple, the ancient beastskin scroll inside the house suddenly flew out, glowing with a brilliant golden light that dissolved into ancient runes and began swirling rapidly around the battered black pot in Zhu Dacheng's hand. Startled, he dropped the pot with a heavy metallic clank, backing away. I just picked this up on the road. It has nothing to do with me, I swear. He scrambled back in terror. I walked over and picked up the black pot. The instant my fingers touched it, a wave of blistering heat nearly scorched my palm. This was absolutely no ordinary pot. Recalling the contents of that ancient scroll, suddenly, it clicked. I turned to look at Dacheng, who was still drooling, and gave him a wolfish, sweet smile. Dacheng, want braised pork every single day? He nodded like crazy. Yes, even in my dreams? I pointed at the black pot. Apprentice under me, and this pot is your wok. You handle the meals in our blacksmith shop. What do you say? He froze, stared at me like I was a saint, then fell to his knees. Master, please accept my bow. From now on, I, Zhu Dacheng, will cook for you for life. Ding! Congratulations on recruiting a disciple. Cultivation limits greatly lifted. Reward. Absolute defense evolved to universal rebound and unlocked Dacheng's special constitution, heaven. Burning creation body. Awarded 1 god-grade cookware set. I grinned at the system alerts. Just as I was telling Su Yao to take him to wash up, a terrifying tear ripped through the sky. We all looked up to see. The clear night sky was violently torn open by an immense power, revealing a massive crack. Blinding lightning flashed inside, alongside winds that could level worlds. A voice of pure, majestic rage boomed from the depths. Audacious mortals, how dare you destroy my clone's vessel? Today, I shall unleash heavenly armies to erase you and this entire world from existence. That pressure was 10,000 times heavier than before. Even the air itself turned to ice. The town's houses crumbled as giant cracks split the earth. Chu Feng, Mu Shui, and Su Yao braced for impact. Even Dacheng shivered, tightly clutching his black pot. Outside, Lung Qingqiu was pinned flat to the ground, unable to budge. An immortal from the heavens has descended. I sighed, watching the dense celestial army about to pour out of the rift. I casually tossed my glowing beast skin scroll into the furnace as firewood, then turned to look at my 4 oddball disciples. Looks like we're adding some heavenly soldiers as side dishes to tonight's braised pork. The massive rift in the sky resembled a greedy abyss, its void winds tearing off roofs as golden lightning poured down like a waterfall. Endless celestial armies in gleaming gold armor marched out on glowing clouds. The display was 10,000 times grander than any royal parade. At the front, an immortal rode a beast breathing 3 colored divine fire, a jade Keelan. Clutching a pestle wrapped in heavenly laws, he glared down at our rundown blacksmith shop. "Mortals, prepare to die." His voice boomed like 10,000 brass bells, violently shaking the entire town. People buying groceries looked up at this apocalyptic scene. The elderly dropped their baskets and skillfully scurried into their cellars. After all, living near our blacksmith shop for the past few months, they had seen more wild sights than 1,000-year-old cultivators. Purple lightning raged around Chu Feng. He gripped his massive blacksmith hammer until his knuckles turned white. Mu Shui stayed silent, but her weapon, the crimson sword on her back, hummed with crazed excitement, smelling a rare delicacy. Little Su Yao stepped in front of me, clenching her chubby fists. Meanwhile, De Chang, legs shaking, hugged his black pot on the ground and whimpered, "Master, should we run?" I slowly stood up from my rocking chair, brushing seed shells off my clothes. "Run? They just delivered fresh ingredients to our door. De Chang, today is your first day, so this feast is all yours." De Chang widened his tiny eyes, his face screaming, "Are you kidding me? Those are gods." I walked over and smacked his fat head. "Gods? In my eyes, they're just flying, free-range chickens. Use the kitchen chant I just taught you and stew that fiery chilin for me." Though absolutely terrified, De Chang was a natural chef. The moment he heard the word stew, his deep-seated desire for fresh ingredients conquered his fear. He took a deep breath, forced his shaking legs to stand, and rose up clutching his black pot. His legendary bloodline awakened, and his god-grade cooking set glowed with dark gold light. De Chang recited my bizarre chant, holding the pot in his left hand while slapping its bottom with his right. He roared, "Heat the wok! Pour the oil!" With a massive boom, the small black pot ballooned instantly, becoming a colossal wok that blocked the sky, several times larger than the rift. It erupted with his unique purple flame, a mystical fire that sizzled and warped the very fabric of the void. The heavenly soldiers were completely dumbfounded. They had seen flying swords and sacred relics, but never a cooking wok used as a weapon. The immortal riding the Keelan roared in fury. "Ignorant mortal trash, perish." He swung his pestle, and thousands of soldiers cast spells together. Colorful magic rained down like a storm on our shop. Any single spell could obliterate a master cultivator. Chu Feng and Mu Shui stepped up, but I stopped them. "Just watch how your 4th brother cooks." De Chang was now in full chef mode. With bloodshot eyes, he stared at the incoming spells, swung his arm, and roared a line that made even me cringe. "Reduce the sauce." The colossal iron wok unleashed an irresistible, terrifying suction. The apocalyptic spells never even reached the ground, they were swallowed whole. Even worse, the pull reached right into the sky. Those arrogant soldiers were sucked in like dumplings, screaming as they fell into the blazing pot. Even the majestic Jade Keelan couldn't escape, kicking its hooves before plunging in with a wail. Half the sky was cleared instantly. A rich aroma of stew mixed with pure energy drifted out. Just one sniff made us feel euphoric. The Immortal's eyes nearly popped out. He used every ounce of his power just to stay upright and avoid being sucked in. Seeing his elite army turned into a hot pot, he shook with rage and spat out golden blood. "Monster! What sorcery is this?" he roared, pulling out an ancient bronze mirror. The moment it appeared, the world's laws froze. A beam of destructive light erupted from the mirror, aiming straight for De Chang's head. Busy controlling the wok, he couldn't dodge the soul-crushing beam, about to pierce the fat guy. I sighed. The new kid is still green. The master has to handle the chores. I casually grabbed a rusty coal tong from the furnace and took a step forward, instantly warping through space to stand in front of De Chang. The devastating light beam slammed right into me. At that exact moment, the advanced absolute defense skill, Universal Rebound, quietly activated within my body. No earth-shaking explosion, no flashy shield. The beam hit an invisible, invincible wall. It didn't scratch me at all. Instead, it rebounded at 10 times its original speed. The Immortal didn't even have time to react before his own ultimate move hit him dead on. With a bang, the mighty Immortal exploded into a golden mist without a single last word. His soul completely erased from existence. His ancient bronze mirror clattered down. Quick as lightning, I caught it with my rusty coal tongs. Feeling its weight, the material was decent, perfect as a vanity mirror for Su Yao. I tossed it to her, then turned to Chang, who was still in a daze. Heat is perfect. Wrap it up, or the meat will get tough. Chang snapped out of it, chanted the spell, and the giant wok shrank down on the bronze tripod. Golden bubbles simmered. The heavenly army and Keelin were refined into pure immortal broth. The rich aroma gathered like auspicious clouds above the shop. Even a mouse in town would probably gain sentience from the smell. Chu Feng and Mu Shui gulped. Even the cold Mu Shui leaned closer. I grabbed bowls and chopsticks from the kitchen and waved them over. Come on, eat while it's hot. Chang, your cooking is top-notch, way better than any tavern. The five of us sat around the pot, feasting. Outside, Lung Qingchu hid behind the shed, terrified as she watched us eat cooked immortal meat. But the aroma kept drifting into her nose. Just by sniffing it twice, her long stagnant cultivation broke through with a boom, jumping straight to the golden core stage. She gasped in shock, tears streaming down her face. The realm she spent a century trying to reach in her past life was attained today just by smelling someone cook. She grit her teeth, summoned her courage, walked to the shop door, and fell to her knees. Senior, Ching Chu wants to wash dishes for you. As long as I can stay as a maid, I will do anything. Chewing on a piece of Keelan cartilage, I didn't even look up. Sure, break one, and I'll take 10 years off your life. Head to the backyard. Overjoyed, she bowed repeatedly and walked in like an obedient maid, waiting by the well. That night, spiritual energy went wild in the shop. Chu Feng drank 3 bowls of soup, upgrading his lightning body to level 2. His purple lightning turned dark gold, his cultivation reaching golden core peak. Mu Shui was even crazier. Her sword bone absorbed the immortal source, and her blood sword merged with her soul. She became like an unsheathed, divine weapon, her cultivation nearing nascent soul level. As for Chang, the fat guy ate and cried, saying he'd never tasted anything so good. His special constitution stabilized, making his fat as hard as a top-tier defensive shield. Little Su Yao just burped, crawled into my lap, and fell asleep. Looking at these monster disciples, I felt smug. Checking my system panel, another 10% of my cultivation seal was unlocked. I felt like I could slap that rift in the sky shut with one hand. Late at night, the disciples went back to cultivate. Lung Qingchu finished dishes and meditated in the woodshed. I lay back on my rocking chair in the yard. Looking at the starry sky and enjoying this rare peace, I suddenly felt a stir in my arms. Looking down, little Su Yao had woken up. She was tightly clutching a tiny wooden toy I carved from scrap wood 2 years ago, tears still on her eyelashes. Her big eyes were filled with deep sadness. What is it, Yao Yao? Did you eat too much meat and get a stomachache? I quickly sat up to check her forehead. She shook her head, burying her face in my chest, mumbling, Brother Fan, I just had a really long dream. There was a massive world on fire, and the sky turned pitch black. Bad guys with weapons, just like those people today, were hunting my mommy and daddy. The little girl sobbed, her shoulders shaking. Daddy, and mommy hid me in a freezing bronze chest to protect me. They told me to survive and see a peaceful world for them. Then, they pushed me into the dark void. Brother Fan, I am not some orphan. I am a jinx who got my parents killed, right? If they had not tried to save me, they were so strong they could have escaped. My heart clenched. I recalled the bronze coffin of creation in the ancient ruins. It was not a tomb, but an escape pod built to cross endless galaxies. Su Yao carried the weight of a destroyed world and a deep blood feud. I sighed, holding this little girl close. She was usually strong as an ox, but now she felt fragile as porcelain. Nonsense. Your parents risked everything so you could eat meat and be happy, not to shed tears. I patted her back gently. There are no jinxes here, only soft hammers. Remember, this shop is your home. Even if the sky falls, your brother Fan will hold it up. If those bad guys who destroyed your home ever show up, I will throw them into Chang's cooking pot and stew them for you. Su Yao looked up, her tear-stained face fixed on me. Brother Fan, you are so good to me. When I grow up, I will protect you. I chuckled at her little adult routine and pinched her nose. Sure. You protect me later. Now get to sleep. We must buy cabbage early tomorrow. Watching her run back inside on her short legs. Into the house, I leaned back in my chair, my gaze turning cold. All these worlds were far messier than I imagined if even a sweet kid like Su Yao had to suffer. I needed to forge faster. I must make supreme divine gear for all my disciples. Early the next morning, while I was still dreaming, Chu Feng was pacing anxiously outside. Master, we have a crisis. The shop has run out of fuel and food. I yawned and opened the door. No food? Did we not just stew at Qilin yesterday? He pointed to the empty yard with a long face. We are out of coal, and Chang cannot cook without fire. Plus, all that iron ore you bought yesterday? I smashed it into dust with one hammer strike. Dust! We do not even have scrap metal left. I slapped my thigh, remembering that giant bronze anvil possessed the power of creation, but consumed materials at a terrifying rate. Normal iron turned to ash before you could even strike it. We had to buy high-grade spirit ores, but I patted my empty pockets. The shop did not have much savings, and these past few months we did nothing but fight. We did not sell a single farm tool. Where was the money for high-grade ores? My eyes darted around and landed on the junk pile in the corner. Those were the tools Chu Feng had ruined, including crooked hoes, chipped kitchen knives, and blackened fire pokers. Aha! I clapped my hands. Chu Feng, Mu Shui, load these onto the cart. We are visiting Tianbao Pavilion today. Chu Feng looked utterly confused. Master, why are we going there? That is the largest cultivator trading house for 100,000 miles. Everything is insanely expensive. They will kick us poor guys right out. I glared at him. Who said we are buying? We are selling. Pack these supreme treasures. We are making a fortune today. Take these supreme treasures. Today, we are going to make a massive profit. Mu Shui stared at a chipped kitchen knife that looked chewed by a dog, her lips twitching. Master, you call this a supreme treasure? I nodded solemnly. What? You look down on your brother's work? Stop talking nonsense and load the cart. The four of us, along with our new maid Lung Qingchu, pushed the broken wooden cart, grandly heading toward Tiangshuan City, hundreds of miles away. At our current speed, that distance was just a short walk. Tiangshuan City, a subsidiary of the Tiangshuan sect, was incredibly bustling. Cultivators flying on swords were everywhere. Tianbao Pavilion sat right in the center, a towering 9-story glazed pagoda, exceptionally grand. We pushed our broken cart right up to the entrance, only to be blocked by 2 guards in fine robes. Get lost. Go beg somewhere else, you hillbillies. This is Tianbao Pavilion. No entry for outsiders. They looked at us with disgust, especially when they saw the cart of blackened iron, and even held their noses. Chu Feng, with his hot temper, was about to explode on the spot. Master, let me smash this pagoda with my hammer. I stopped him and offered the guards a warm smile. Gentlemen, we are here to auction treasures. Please, let us in. Auction treasures? The guard laughed as if it were a joke. You call this scrap metal on your broken cart a treasure? Do you think I am blind? Get lost or we will break your legs. Just then, an elder in a lavish robe walked out of the pavilion, frowning. What is all this noise? Where are your manners? The guard quickly put on a flattering smile. Manager Li, these beggars claim they have treasures to auction. They brought ruined farm tools to cause trouble. I am chasing them off. Manager Li glanced at us. His gaze paused on Lung Qingchu, as if she looked familiar, but he did not think much of it. He waved his hand impatiently. Shoo, do not disrupt our business. I sighed. Cultivators these days really have no vision. Mu Shui, grab a kitchen knife to show this manager what is what. Mu Shui expressionlessly picked up that chipped kitchen knife from our cart and tossed it toward a nearby stone used for testing weapons. That stone was made of 10,000-year basalt, and even a full-force strike from a nascent soul cultivator could only leave a faint scratch on it. The kitchen knife tumbled slowly through the air, looking completely harmless. Manager Li sneered and said, "This is absurd. If this scrap metal can scratch the testing stone, I will eat this rock." Before he could finish his sentence, a soft slice was heard. Just like cutting through tofu, the broken kitchen knife was not bounced back, but sank directly into the testing stone, leaving not even the handle showing. Dead silence fell over the place. The guard's jaws dropped, and Manager Li's cloudy old eyes bulged, almost popping out of his head. Trembling, he walked up to the testing stone and touched the mirror-smooth cut. An incredibly restrained but absolutely terrifying destructive intent surged from the cut straight into his soul, scaring him so much that he fell flat. How is this possible? No spiritual energy, yet It easily sliced through 10,000-year basalt. This is the peak of simplicity, a supreme immortal weapon. Manager Lee scrambled up frantically, lunging at our broken cart like a hungry wolf. His hands trembled as he picked up a dirt-covered hoe, weeping openly. Supreme! They are all supreme treasures. Heavens, to think I would see so many immortal-grade items in my lifetime. I sat on the cart, swinging my legs. Manager Lee, do you want that stone steamed or braised? Chang can cook it for free. Manager Lee snapped out of it and slapped his own face hard, disregarding all dignity. Senior, forgive me. I was blind. Quick, please come inside. Today, Tianbao Pavilion has a once-in-a-century supreme auction. If these treasures of yours are featured, they will definitely shake the entire cultivation world. Escorted by Manager Lee, we strolled proudly into the exclusive private box on the top floor of Tianbao Pavilion. The room was lavishly decorated, tables filled with rare spirit fruits and tea. Lung Qingqiu stood behind me, massaging my shoulders, while Chu Feng and Mu Shui curiously looked down at the crowded auction hall below. The auction began quickly. The earth-grade techniques and 10,000-year herbs sold first meant nothing to us. My disciples did not even look. Zhu Dachang, however, was highly interested in a ginseng root that looked like a giant turnip, saying it would taste great in a soup. Finally, it was time for the grand finale. The chief auctioneer, an enchanting woman, announced with a trembling voice, "Honored guests, our next item will completely shatter your understanding of magical treasures. It is a destiny treasure capable of guarding a top-tier sect." As the red cloth was pulled off, the entire auction hall fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. On stage was none other than a pitch-black fire poker. The hall was silent for 3 seconds before bursting into roaring laughter. Is Tianbao Pavilion crazy? Fooling us with a fire poker? My kitchen has plenty of these. Do they think we have more money than brains? Facing the crowd's doubts and mockery, the auctioneer did not panic. She carefully put on a pair of special silkworm gloves, gently picked up the fire poker, and walked to the testing array in the center. Everyone, look closely. This array was handcrafted by a deity transformation expert as a supreme defensive barrier. Without channeling any spiritual energy, she simply tapped the fire poker against the barrier like hitting a wooden fish. She gently tapped it. Crack! A sharp, shattering sound rang out, echoing through the room. Before the horrified eyes of everyone present, that supreme defensive array, said to be unbreakable even by a peak deity transformation expert, shattered like fragile glass. It was instantly covered in spiderweb cracks, and with a loud bang, exploded into a shower of light fragments. The laughter in the hall stopped instantly. Everyone looked like a choked duck, mouths wide open but unable to make a sound. What kind of monster treasure was this? Breaking a grand array with just its material. What if they channeled energy? Starting price: 1 million, top-grade spirit stones, with a minimum bid raise of 100,000. The auctioneer struck her gavel. The hall instantly fell into a bidding frenzy. 2 million! 3 million! I bid 5 million. I will go bankrupt for it. Hearing the numbers climb, Chu Feng swallowed hard. Master, are we rich? I ruined that fire poker yesterday and just threw it in the corner. If I knew it was worth this much, I would have forged a few more. I took a sip of tea and said, "Stay calm. Don't act so clueless. Later, we are taking this money to buy up all the top-grade iron ore in the city." Ultimately, the fire poker was bought by a mysterious masked elder for the staggering price of 15 million top-grade spirit stones. Not only that, but all our farm tools were completely sold out. Tianbao Pavilion did not even charge us a commission fee, and instead gave us their highest-level purple gold black card. We pushed our empty cart home, loaded with riches. Zhu Chang bought several cartloads of high-grade beast meat and rare ingredients, while Chu Feng bought out all the top-grade spirit ores from the city's major merchant houses. Walking back, on the town road, the setting sun stretched our shadows. We were laughing and chatting as if we'd just gone grocery shopping. But as we neared the town, I suddenly stopped, my eyes narrowing. Behind me, Lung Qingqiu sensed something was wrong. She nervously gripped her broom. "Come out! Hiding in the trees feeding mosquitoes can't be comfortable?" I called out lazily toward the pitch-black woods. Right then, a rustling echoed, and several ragged figures leaped from the treetops. They landed right in front of our wooden cart. Leading them was a one-armed old man, his body covered in deep, bone-revealing scars. His breath was as weak as a dying candle, yet his eyes were fixed. He stared dead at Su Yao, who was hiding behind me. Chu Feng stepped forward, dark gold lightning flickering across his body. Master, these old beggars look up to no good. Should I just hammer them to sleep? Lung Qingqiu also readied her broom, preparing to attack. But instead of fighting back, the one-armed elder fell to his knees in the mud. The others behind him knelt in unison. With trembling lips, tears mixing with the dirt on his face, he sobbed, "Little princess, this old servant has finally found you." The title, Little Princess, completely dumbfounded us. Su Yao poked her fluffy head out, her big eyes filled with confusion. "Old grandpa, you have the wrong person. Brother Fan saved me from the snow. I'm no princess." The elder kowtowed frantically, his forehead slammed against the stones, drawing blood. Trembling, he pulled a tattered cloth from his robe, revealing a dim, cracked stone. "Little princess, I cannot be mistaken. You carry the aura of the creation bronze coffin. Back when our Pleconwation world was mercilessly destroyed by the upper realm, in our final hour, the king and queen used their last soul power to send you into the void. We old bones fought through the siege and searched this ruined cultivation world for 3 whole years." Hearing this, Su Yao's chubby little body stiffened. She stared blankly at the stone in his hand, tears bursting from her eyes. The bond of blood cannot lie. She stumbled forward and hugged that cold stone, sobbing her heart out. "Daddy, Mommy, Yao Yao misses you so much. I eat all my food every day. Why did you abandon me?" Seeing this little girl, who normally lifts hundreds of pounds of iron, crying like a helpless kitten, my heart ached as if stabbed by needles. Chu Feng clenched his fists, his eyes red. Mu Shui turned away to wipe her tears, and even the carefree fat boy, Zhu Dechang, sniffled. The old man wept. "Little princess, the king and queen never abandoned you. This creation soul stone seals their last fragments of soul. If we can find a legendary great Luo immortal, maybe we can restore them to see their beloved daughter." Hearing her parents could be saved, Su Yao rushed over, clutching the stone, and grabbed my hem, falling to her knees. "Brother Fan, please save my daddy and mommy. Yao Yao will eat less meat and work harder, and never be naughty again. Please, Brother Fan." I quickly pulled her into my arms, gently rubbing her head. "Silly girl, why are you being so polite with me? Even if their souls were completely scattered, I'd march into the underworld and tear up the book of life and death. Who dares make my disciple cry?" I turned to Chu Feng. "Bring all the top-grade spirit ores we just bought. We're going home. No customers today. Our forge is starting an unprecedented run." "Understood, master." The old retainers looked at each other, clearly doubting a simple blacksmith shop could revive shattered souls. But I didn't care to explain. We rushed back to the town, and I had Lung Qingqiu shut the gates tight, hanging a sign. "Forging in progress. Keep out." I walked to the creation bronze anvil in the center of the yard and took a deep breath. I packed away all the system's kitchenware. Tonight, this place belongs to pure smithing. Disciples, listen up. I looked at my 4 disciples standing straight: Chu Feng, Mu Shui, Da Shang, and Su Yao. Today, I will forge 2 physical bodies. They must withstand the heavenly backlash. De Chang, light the fire using your 9 nether flame. Crank the furnace to the absolute maximum. Do not stop until I say so. Zhu Dachang patted his chest. "Don't worry, master. Even if my fat melts away, the fire won't dim. Chu Feng, use your lightning body to purify the melting ores, and crush every impurity with your lightning to ensure absolute purity." Chu Feng gripped his hammer, eyes burning. "Yes, master." Mu Shui, use your sword intent to carve the soul-gathering array onto the newly forged bones. No mistakes allowed, or they will be utterly obliterated. Mu Shui drew her sword, looking dead serious. "Do not worry, master. The sword and I are one." Finally, I looked at red-eyed Su Yao. "Yao Yao, you are the key. Once the bodies form, you must fuse your creation power and bloodline into them. Only then will your parents' souls accept these new vessels." Su Yao nodded hard and wiped her tears. "Brother Fan, I'm ready." At my command, the blacksmith shop transformed. Zhu Dechang roared, activating his burning heaven creation body. The giant black wok turned into a furnace, and purple 9 nether flames soared, lighting up the night sky like day. I dumped dozens of sacks of top-grade spirit ores into the furnace. Myriad-year black ice iron, 9 heavens astral steel, phoenix blood gold, peerless treasures that would trigger bloodbaths outside were now melted like cheap cabbage. Too slow, I frowned, and grabbed a tattered fan, giving the furnace a violent wave. Boom! A column of fire shot hundreds of feet into the air. Under the intense heat, the ores rapidly melted into a glowing, rainbow-colored liquid. "Bring the lightning!" I roared. Chu Feng's eyes flashed with golden light as he leaped into the air. Wild, dark gold lightning surged from his fists, slamming into the molten pool. With a crackling fury, the impurities were reduced to ash. Only the purest essence remained. Grabbing my old heaven-slaying sword currently disguised as rusty iron tongs, I lifted the scorching liquid onto the creation bronze anvil. I closed my eyes, gripping my worn hammer. When my eyes opened, my entire presence shifted. Gone was my usual laziness, replaced by an earth-shattering majesty. Watch closely. This is the ultimate art of smithing, the crucible of heaven and earth. My hammer blurred into a storm of shadows, every strike pulsing with the rhythm of the Tao. The crisp clangs echoed through the clouds. The entire town and the surrounding lands vibrated in perfect sync. The rainbow liquid gradually split into two glowing masses under my strikes, taking the shape of human bones. Mu Shui seized the moment, moving like a ghost through the sparks. Her sword danced, carving onto the bones, drawing complex, profound, ancient soul-gathering arrays. Suddenly, dark clouds gathered, and a wild wind howled as a world-destroying heavenly pressure descended. Defying fate to recreate souls was strictly forbidden by the laws of heaven. A massive eye of heavenly tribulations slowly opened in the clouds, staring coldly at our small shop. Bolts of world-ending purple lightning, strong enough to turn grandmasters to ash, brewed in the sky. The old retainers were paralyzed with fear. A heavenly trial. We are doomed. Lung Qingchu turned pale, gripping her broom. Chu Feng and Mu Shui trembled but gritted their teeth. My hammer didn't miss a single beat, though I frowned slightly, seeing the furnace fire weaken under the immense pressure, and Zhu Decheng sweating, on the verge of collapse. I snorted. Hey, giant eyeball up there! You came at the right time. My furnace needs a bellows blower. Just as the strike was about to fall, I reached my left hand toward the sky. Reversing my system's counter ability, I turned it into an irresistible pulling force. The majestic eye of tribulation didn't even have a chance to resist before I dragged it straight out of the clouds. It crashed right next to the furnace. The eye of heavenly tribulation was utterly dazed. As the supreme controller of life, it was grabbed like a helpless chicken by Immortal. Before it could react, I kicked its eyelid. What are you staring at? Blow some wind. Your lightning is perfect to fan the flames. If the fire dies, I'll forge you into an iron pot. Terrified tears welled up in the eye. Sensing an aura from me that was infinitely higher than its own dimension, the mighty avatar of heaven swallowed its pride. It puffed its cheeks and spat purple tribulation lightning into the furnace, helping Dechang stoke the flames. The old retainer's minds completely shattered. Heaven itself was playing assistant to a blacksmith? Were they dreaming? With the heavenly lightning fueling the forge, two flawless bodies were finally completed, glowing with an aura more terrifying than celestial beings. Yao Yao now, I roared. Wiping the sweat from her face, Su Yao bit her finger and dripped her bloodline essence onto the foreheads of the two bodies. She then carefully held the stone and guided the two lingering soul fragments out. The moment they touched the forged bodies, the arrays pulled them in. A blinding white light erupted, and time itself seemed to freeze. As the white light faded, two slender figures lay quietly on the bronze anvil. Then, a faint but steady heartbeat echoed through the yard. Thump! Thump! The man and woman on the anvil opened their sacks' eyes. At first confused, clarity soon returned to them. When they saw Su Yao sobbing beside them, tears instantly welled in their eyes. Yao, Yao, the woman's voice was weak, yet filled with infinite love. Su Yao threw herself into the woman's arms, crying hysterically. Mommy! Daddy! Yao Yao thought I'd never see you again. The man also reached out with trembling hands, pulling his family close. The three sobbed together as a family. The old retainers wept with joy, kowtowing repeatedly. Heaven blesses our nation. Chu Feng, Mu Shui, and Dechang turned away to wipe their tears. Even the eye of heaven, pinned down to blow the fire, seemed moved. I blinked in mock emotion, squeezing out a single thunderous tear, then casually tossed the eye of heaven back into the sky like a toy. All right, you're done here. Beat it. Relieved, the massive eye slipped into the clouds and bolted faster than a rabbit. The dark clouds vanished instantly, letting sunlight flood our small courtyard again. Supported by Su Yao, her parents limped over to me. They could tell that despite my ordinary appearance, this simple blacksmith was actually an unfathomable supreme master. Without hesitation, they fell to their knees. Senior, we can never repay your incredible kindness. Please, let us work like beasts of burden in your shop. I quickly helped them up and patted the husband's shoulder. Cut the kneeling. None of that here. My blacksmith shop doesn't take in big shots anyway. Now that you're alive, just focus on being there for Yao Yao. This girl has suffered enough. Su Yao clung tightly to my arm. Brother Fan is the best. He taught me to eat, to forge, and raised me to be so plump. Hearing her innocent chatter, we all burst out laughing, completely melting away the sad, tense atmosphere. Suddenly, a loud divine chime rang inside my head. Ding! Congratulations, host. Your eldest disciple's inner trauma is resolved. Her master of creation physique has fully awakened. All hidden disciple tasks are complete. Cultivation seal lifted. Progress. 100%. Ultimate title granted. Supreme Lord of Myriad Worlds. I closed my eyes, feeling the power inside me, vast as a sea of stars, fully roar back to life. Right now, a gentle breath from me could wipe this entire cultivation world off the map. With a single thought, I could create countless new universes. I was finally unmatched under heaven. The system's flattering voice chimed again. Host, you are now invincible across the heavens. Do you wish to ascend to the highest domain immediately and rule the multiverse? I opened my eyes, looking at this ramshackle yet warmly lively courtyard. Chu Feng was excitedly polishing a new farm tool. Mu Shui was carefully wiping down her Crimson Heaven sword. Zhu Dechang hummed a little tune in the kitchen while chopping veggies, and Su Yao happily showed off her incredibly ugly crocodile skin apron. Holding a broom, Leng Qingchu swept fallen leaves with a peaceful smile. It was all so wonderfully ordinary, yet so incredibly real and warm. I took a deep breath of the air, rich with the scent of cooking food, and happy laughter. Grinning, I told the system in my mind, ascend? Screw that. Does the high god domain have braised pork as good as Dechang's? Is ruling the universe more fun than watching my disciples grow? Keep your mouth shut and stay put. The system seemed speechless, but obediently replied, understood, host. Happy forging. I strolled over and flopped onto my favorite rocking chair right in the middle of the yard, picking up my tattered leaf fan to enjoy the breeze. Da Chang, feast tonight. Bring out your absolute best dishes. To celebrate Yao Yao's family reunion, we're having a full demon banquet. A booming reply echoed from the kitchen. You got it, master. Everyone will be licking their plates clean tonight. Chu Feng sidled over with a grin. Master, that fire poker sold for 15 million? We're rich now. Shouldn't we renovate this old dump tomorrow? I glared at him. Renovate? What renovate? This is rustic simplicity, you dummy. You know nothing. Tomorrow morning, you're swinging that sledgehammer. Miss a single strike, and you go without dinner. As Chu Feng wailed, Mu Shui burst into a rare, bell-like laugh that echoed through the yard. Leng Qingchu walked over with a plate of fresh fruit and placed it respectfully by my side. Senior, please enjoy. I took a crisp, sweet bite. Life really is beautifully simple. I'm powerful enough to slap an immortal emperor to death. Yet I'd rather stay in this dusty shop, swinging a hammer and watching my disciples fool around in the yard. Listening to the clash of pots and pans in the kitchen, I knew this was the perfect ending.